Ethan Carter was not like other 10-year-olds. While most kids his age were lost in video games or daydreaming about schoolyard antics, Ethan was deep in thought, thinking about things that most adults couldn't even comprehend. On this particular day, as he sat in the back of his fifth-grade classroom, his mind was running faster than the speed of light, connecting dots that no one else even saw. The hum of the fluorescent lights above him buzzed in his ears, but that wasn't what he was focused on. No, it was the math problem written on the board that captivated him. It wasn't just an equation. It was a puzzle, a challenge that promised to reveal something more, something bigger. Ethan's eyes darted around the classroom, making sure no one was looking. Then, in an instant, the numbers came together in his mind, and he silently solved the equation with a sense of ease that felt almost unnatural. "Okay, Ethan, you've got it," Mrs. Green, his teacher, said with a slight chuckle, clearly amused by his intense focus. "But let's see if the rest of the class can catch up with you." Ethan didn't respond. He didn't need to. He already knew the answer before the rest of the class had even started writing. His IQ was 162, an IQ higher than most adults could ever dream of reaching. Some would say that was a gift, but Ethan often felt it more like a curse. It was a blessing to understand things so deeply, but a burden to be trapped in a world where nobody else seemed to grasp his thoughts. As the bell rang, signaling the end of the school day, Ethan packed up his backpack quickly. His classmates filed out of the room, chattering about what they were going to do after school, but Ethan didn't have the energy to join in. He just needed some time alone, time to think. He walked home, his steps purposeful, as if his mind was in a different world altogether. When he got to his house, his parents were already there. His mother, a renowned neuroscientist, was on a call, and his father, a successful entrepreneur, was reading through a pile of documents. They barely noticed him enter. "Ethan, how was school today?" his mother asked absently, barely looking up from her phone. "Fine," he replied quietly, grabbing a book from the shelf. His parents had always been supportive, but their attention was always on their own accomplishments. Ethan wasn't sure if they truly understood him. No one did. His father glanced over the top of his glasses. "Don't forget, Ethan, you've got a meeting with Dr. Leonard tomorrow. You know how important this is." Ethan nodded, but the words barely registered. The meeting was set up by his parents to see if he was capable of handling higher-level intellectual challenges. They saw it as another milestone for their gifted child. Ethan knew the truth, though. He wasn't just gifted. He was different. His intelligence was far beyond anything they had imagined. Later that night, as Ethan sat in his room, flipping through a thick book about quantum physics, his mind began to wander. What was he supposed to do with all this knowledge? The question haunted him constantly. There was no challenge left in school. His classmates, with their limited understanding, couldn't even keep up with him. He often felt like an outsider, the smartest kid in the room, but the loneliest one too. His brain was a maze of ideas, concepts, and equations that no one else seemed to care about. Ethan closed the book and sighed. But then, something sparked in his mind, a thought that shifted everything. What if I could do something bigger than this? Something that actually matters? He sat up straighter, feeling the weight of that question. What if he could challenge someone? Someone truly brilliant, someone who could make a difference in the world. His eyes flickered to the screen of his laptop. Elon Musk. The name flashed across his mind like a sign. The man who had changed the world with SpaceX and Tesla, the visionary who seemed to think as far ahead as Ethan did. Ethan had followed Musk's career for years, fascinated by the way Musk approached the impossible. He admired Musk's drive and passion for innovation. What if, just what if, he could challenge Musk to a debate about the future of technology, space exploration, and artificial intelligence? Ethan would need to think bigger, to go beyond school projects and the confines of his quiet life. He could take on Musk, show the world that there was a new mind on the rise. The idea hit him like a lightning bolt. Ethan quickly grabbed his phone and typed a message on his computer. He didn't know how he was going to get it to Musk, but that didn't matter right now. What mattered was that he had a purpose. For the first time in years, he felt like he had something to live for. He wasn't just a kid with a high IQ anymore. He was going to do something that mattered. Dear Elon Musk, my name is Ethan Carter. I am 10 years old, and I believe I am capable of holding a public debate with you on the future of technology and space exploration. I have spent years studying and researching, and I feel confident that I can contribute ideas that could challenge some of your views. Would you consider this debate? The world is watching, and I believe we can shape the future together. Ethan hit send, his heart racing. He didn't know if Musk would even see the message, let alone respond. But that didn't matter. What mattered was that Ethan had taken the first step. As he sat back in his chair, staring at the blank screen, his mind began to race again. What would the world say? Would they laugh at him for challenging one of the greatest minds alive? But no, Ethan wasn't afraid of the world's judgment. He had always felt like an outsider, but now, he was finally taking control of his destiny. And maybe, just maybe, Elon Musk would see something in him that no one else had before. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough? Ethan Carter was a child prodigy, but the truth was, he didn't ask for it. He didn't ask for the endless stream of tests, the well-meaning but clueless comments from strangers, or the constant whispering of teachers about his exceptional abilities. He didn't ask for the pressure of living up to expectations that seemed to follow him everywhere. Growing up, it was clear from an early age that Ethan was different. While other children struggled to pronounce simple words, Ethan was reading Shakespeare by the age of 5. His mother, Dr. Alexandra Carter, would often joke that he was born with a dictionary in his hand. But as much as she celebrated his intellectual gifts, she never quite knew how to connect with him emotionally. She was a neuroscientist, after all, someone who understood the brain on a level most people could never hope to, but she had difficulty understanding her son. Ethan had always been an enigma, even to his own parents. His father, James Carter, a successful entrepreneur who built his fortune from the ground up, expected nothing less than greatness from Ethan. Both of Ethan's parents were driven, high-achieving individuals, and as their only child, the pressure was always on him to measure up. He knew they loved him, but love often felt more like an obligation than anything else. In their world, success was a requirement, not a possibility. School had always been a breeze for Ethan. By the time he was 8, he was solving calculus problems, and by the time he was 9, he was tutoring high school students in physics. He had won every academic award his school offered, and yet, he felt no satisfaction in his achievements. The accolades meant little to him because no one could keep up with him. Even his teachers, who were all highly educated, were often left speechless by his grasp of complex subjects. It was the same feeling he had when looking at his peers. He didn't belong. They were busy playing games, building friendships, and navigating the challenges of childhood, while he was stuck in a world of his own creation. The isolation wasn't just social, it was emotional too. Ethan had tried once to make friends, but no one could understand him. He could talk about quantum mechanics and black holes, and while his classmates were polite, their eyes would glaze over. They didn't get him, and he didn't get them. So, Ethan retreated into his own mind, building a world of knowledge and logic that comforted him in a way that human interaction never could. His parents, though proud of his intellect, didn't seem to understand the toll it took on him. They were too busy with their own careers. His father's startup company demanded most of his time, and his mother's research was always at the forefront of her mind. Ethan could never be the normal kid they expected him to be. While his friends played in the park, Ethan sat at his desk, reading books that were far too advanced for his age. His mind was always racing, always thinking, but no one seemed to appreciate how exhausting it was. It wasn't until one fateful evening that things began to shift. His mother, in an effort to further stimulate his intellectual development, arranged for Ethan to meet with Dr. Leonard, a respected child psychologist who specialized in gifted children. Dr. Leonard's office was filled with bookshelves and shelves of research papers, a clear indication of the doctor's own academic prowess. The moment Ethan sat down, Dr. Leonard began asking him questions about his thoughts, his feelings, and his life. At first, Ethan was skeptical. What did this psychologist possibly know about him? She couldn't understand what it was like to live in his mind, a place where thoughts spiraled faster than he could keep up with. But as Dr. Leonard patiently asked him questions about his childhood, his experiences, and his emotions, something surprising happened. For the first time in his life, Ethan felt like someone truly saw him, not just for his intelligence, but for who he was as a person. "Ethan, I understand you feel a lot of pressure," Dr. Leonard said gently, "but you need to remember that your mind is a gift, not a burden. It's okay to be different. You don't have to carry the weight of the world on your shoulders." Her words resonated deeply with Ethan, though he didn't fully understand why. It was as if someone had opened a window inside his mind, allowing him to breathe for the first time. For the first time, he felt understood. That evening, after his meeting with Dr. Leonard, Ethan sat in his room, staring at the stars outside his window. He wondered what the future held for someone like him. Could he ever find a place where he truly belonged? Could he make a real difference in the world? Or was he doomed to spend his life alone in a sea of knowledge? The next morning, his father's voice broke through his thoughts. "Ethan, you're meeting with Dr. Leonard today, right?" Ethan nodded, but he didn't respond. His mind was still lost in the possibilities. There was something else he had been thinking about, something much bigger than school, bigger than his parents' expectations. It was the idea of a challenge. Elon Musk. The name flickered through his mind, as it had countless times before. Musk was the one person whose intellect Ethan admired. Musk's achievements were undeniable, from his work with SpaceX to his vision for a sustainable future. But Ethan felt something deeper, a calling to prove that his intellect could rival even the great minds of this world. He could challenge Musk. He could show the world that he was more than just a child prodigy. He could make a difference. The debate idea from last night didn't seem so far-fetched anymore. It felt like a mission, a way for Ethan to prove that even someone as young as he was could stand toe-to-toe with the giants of the intellectual world. Ethan had always felt like an outsider, but maybe, just maybe, his intelligence was the key to making a lasting impact. He had the knowledge. Now he just needed to take the first step. As he headed downstairs, his mother greeted him with a warm smile, but Ethan's mind was already elsewhere. He had a plan now, a plan that could change everything. The world wasn't ready for what was coming, but he was. And so, without hesitation, he made up his mind. He was going to challenge Elon Musk to a public debate. He would show the world that brilliance wasn't bound by age. It was time to wake up and take on the challenge of a lifetime. Ethan's mind raced as he walked through the quiet hallways of his home, the words from Dr. Leonard echoing in his head. "It's okay to be different." The psychologist's words felt like a lifeline, something that broke through the suffocating weight of expectations that had held him captive for years. For the first time in a long while, Ethan felt like he was no longer confined to the role of the perfect, genius child. He was someone with a purpose, someone who had the power to challenge the world around him. As he passed by his parents' home office, Ethan heard the familiar hum of his father's voice, talking business as usual. He walked in without knocking, his eyes focused on the glowing screen of his laptop. "Dad, I need to talk to you," Ethan said, his voice steady despite the storm of thoughts in his head. His father, always so busy with his work, didn't immediately look up, but there was something in Ethan's tone that made him pause. He straightened his back in his chair and glanced at his son. "Of course, Ethan. What's on your mind?" James Carter asked, his voice softening a little as he realized something serious was brewing in his son's words. Ethan took a deep breath. This wasn't going to be easy. "I want to challenge Elon Musk to a public debate." The words hit the air like thunderclaps, hanging between them for what felt like an eternity. James' face froze in surprise. His mind, trained in the world of business, didn't immediately understand. He leaned forward, trying to read Ethan's expression. "Son," James began, choosing his words carefully, "I think I missed something. Did you say you want to debate Elon Musk?" "The Elon Musk?" Ethan nodded, unwavering. "Yes, Dad. I'm 10 years old, and my IQ is 162. I've spent years studying, and I'm ready. I think I have ideas that could challenge him. I want to see if I'm right." James stared at him, his brows furrowing as he processed Ethan's words. He'd always known Ethan was smart, but this was a whole new level. Elon Musk was no ordinary man. The thought of his son, just a child, going up against the man who revolutionized space travel, electric vehicles, and artificial intelligence seemed insane. And yet, looking at Ethan's serious expression, James knew this was not just a passing whim. His son had already made up his mind. Ethan, I won't sugarcoat it. This is a huge deal. Musk is not someone to be taken lightly. People around the world listen to him. If you're serious about this, you need to know what you're getting into. James leaned back in his chair, his voice full of concern. This could be a lot of pressure for someone your age. Ethan swallowed. He wasn't naive. He knew this wouldn't be easy. But he had never been someone who backed down from a challenge. His intelligence, his curiosity, and his drive all pointed to one undeniable truth. This was his moment. I'm ready, Dad. I don't want to just be another genius kid who gets put in a box and forgotten. I want to show the world what I can do, what I can change. If I can make Musk think, then maybe I can make the world think too. It's time for me to step up. James was silent for a long moment, and Ethan felt a knot form in his stomach. Was his father going to shut him down? Tell him to go back to being a regular 10-year-old? But then, unexpectedly, James smiled. A small, almost imperceptible smile that made Ethan feel as though his father was seeing him in a way he never had before. You're serious about this, aren't you? James asked quietly. I am, Ethan replied firmly, his voice full of conviction. James nodded slowly. All right. If this is what you want, I'm not going to stop you. But let's be clear, this isn't going to be a game. You're stepping into a very different arena. You'll need to be prepared, and that means more than just knowing the facts. You need strategy, focus, and above all, courage. Ethan felt a surge of pride. His father wasn't dismissing him. He was giving him the green light to pursue his dream, but he was also setting the stage for what lay ahead. We'll get you ready, Ethan, James said, his voice steady and supportive. But remember, this is your challenge. You have to be the one to rise to it. No one can do this for you. Ethan nodded, a wave of determination washing over him. He was ready for whatever came next. Later that evening, after dinner, Ethan sat at his desk, the glow of his laptop illuminating his face. He opened a blank email and began to type. His fingers danced across the keyboard, each word more deliberate than the last. Dear Elon Musk, my name is Ethan Carter. I am 10 years old, and I have an IQ of 162. I have followed your work for many years, and I admire what you have done with SpaceX, Tesla, and your vision for the future of humanity. However, I believe I have ideas that challenge some of your views on technology, space exploration, and artificial intelligence. I would like to propose a public debate with you. I am confident that I can offer perspectives that will make you think, and I would like to see if we can push each other to think even more deeply about the world we are building. Would you consider this debate? I believe it would be an incredible opportunity for both of us, and for the world to witness the exchange of ideas between two minds. Sincerely, Ethan Carter. Ethan hesitated for just a second, but then hit send. His heart raced. This was it. He had taken the leap. Now, all he could do was wait. As he leaned back in his chair, staring at the empty inbox, a strange feeling of calm washed over him. The challenge had been set in motion. No matter what happened, he knew that this was just the beginning. The next morning, when Ethan woke up, he found himself filled with an energy he hadn't felt before. His parents were already at work, and Ethan was left alone with his thoughts. He couldn't help but wonder, what if Musk didn't respond? What if this was all a dream? But then, another thought crossed his mind. What if he does respond? Ethan wasn't afraid of rejection. He wasn't afraid of failure. In fact, failure was something that had always seemed so far removed from his life. He wasn't just another kid with a high IQ. He was Ethan Carter, and he was about to change everything. Ethan sat at his desk, staring at the empty inbox. Hours passed, and still, there was no response. He checked his email obsessively, refreshing the screen every few minutes, hoping that by some miracle, Elon Musk would have seen his message. The same sense of anticipation that had flooded his body the night before had now settled into a gnawing uncertainty. What if Musk didn't take him seriously? What if he thought the idea was ludicrous? Just another child thinking he could take on the world's greatest minds. Ethan's mind raced with questions. What if I'm not ready? What if Musk dismisses me as just another smart kid? Despite his immense intellect, Ethan wasn't immune to the fear of rejection. The idea of putting himself out there on such a large scale felt more real now that the initial excitement had worn off. His plan had been bold, but was it too bold? As the clock ticked on, the world outside his bedroom window continued as normal. Cars zooming by, people chatting on their phones, birds flying across the sky. But inside, the weight of waiting pressed down on Ethan. He had made his decision. He had sent the email. And now, all he could do was wait. His phone buzzed, breaking the silence. Ethan quickly grabbed it, his pulse quickening as he saw the notification. A new email. His heart skipped a beat as he clicked on it, his hands trembling slightly. Ethan's breath caught in his throat as he saw the name at the top of the email, Elon Musk. His fingers hovered over the screen for a moment before he clicked on the message, holding his breath as the words appeared in front of him. Dear Ethan, thank you for your email. I have to admit, I wasn't expecting to hear from a 10-year-old with such an ambitious proposal, but I'm intrigued. I've always been open to new ideas and perspectives, and I appreciate your confidence. While I typically don't engage in public debates, I believe in challenging myself to think beyond the usual boundaries. So, I'll make you a deal. Let's have a private conversation first, just the two of us, to see if we can make this work. If we both think it's a good fit, I'll consider a public debate. Please let my team know your availability for a video call. Looking forward to our discussion. Best. Elon Musk. Ethan felt a rush of emotions all at once. Excitement, relief, and disbelief. He responded. Elon Musk actually responded. His heart raced, and for the first time in what felt like forever, he felt alive with purpose. This was it. He had done it. The debate he had dreamed of was closer than ever. But as the excitement surged within him, another wave of reality hit. A private conversation first? This wasn't exactly what he had expected, but Ethan knew that this was just another step. It wasn't a rejection, and it certainly wasn't a step backward. If anything, it meant Musk was considering the possibility of going public with this debate. The conversation was just the next hurdle to cross. Ethan took a deep breath and reached for his phone to reply. His fingers hovered over the keyboard as he carefully crafted his response. Dear Elon, thank you for your prompt response. I'm honored that you're willing to engage in a private conversation with me, and I'm excited about the possibility of moving forward with this debate. As for my availability, I am free at your convenience. My schedule is flexible, so please let me know when would work best for you, and I'll make sure to be ready. Looking forward to our discussion. Sincerely, Ethan Carter. Ethan hit send and leaned back in his chair, the weight of the moment slowly sinking in. The conversation had been initiated. The clock was ticking, and everything was in motion. The next day, Ethan didn't waste any time. He spent hours preparing, researching Elon Musk's recent projects, his opinions on technology, space exploration, and artificial intelligence. He studied Musk's interviews, speeches, and debates, looking for any weaknesses or areas where he could challenge Musk's thinking. He wasn't just going to be another kid with impressive facts. He was going to be someone who could change the way even Musk thought about the world. At school the following day, Ethan couldn't focus on his lessons. His mind kept drifting back to the upcoming conversation with Musk. It was all he could think about, and even though he tried to keep up appearances of being just another kid in class, his mind was already racing through the possible topics and questions. That afternoon, when he got home, his phone buzzed again. He quickly grabbed it and saw a new message from Musk's team. Dear Ethan, Elon has reviewed his schedule and would like to arrange a video call with you tomorrow at 3 p.m. Please confirm if this time works for you. Best. Musk team. Ethan immediately confirmed, feeling a mixture of excitement and nerves bubbling in his stomach. This was it. In less than 24 hours, he would be speaking with Elon Musk. He had to be ready. As the clock inched closer to 3 p.m. the next day, Ethan found himself pacing in his room. He could feel the pressure mounting, but it wasn't fear. It was anticipation. This was his chance to show Musk that he wasn't just another child prodigy. He was someone who could make an impact. It wasn't just about winning or losing. It was about being heard, about showing that his voice mattered. At exactly 3 p.m., Ethan's phone rang. It was a video call from Musk's team. Ethan took a deep breath, adjusted his shirt, and clicked the accept button. The screen blinked, and there he was, Elon Musk, sitting in front of a backdrop of a modern, minimalist office. His expression was calm, thoughtful. He didn't look surprised, just intrigued, like he had been expecting this conversation all along. "Ethan," Elon said with a smile, "I'm glad we could make this work. How are you doing?" Ethan's heart raced, but his voice was steady. "I'm doing great. Thank you for taking the time to speak with me." Elon nodded, his eyes twinkling with curiosity. "So, tell me more. What is it you want to debate with me? I've read your email, but I'd like to hear your thoughts directly." Ethan took a deep breath and, for the first time in a long while, he felt that everything he had worked for had led him to this moment. The conversation was about to begin. Ethan's heart pounded as he stared at the video call screen, watching as the seconds counted down before Elon Musk appeared on the other side. His palms were slightly sweaty, and he could feel the heat rising to his cheeks. He had imagined this moment 100 times in his head, but now that it was here, everything seemed so real, so much more significant than he had ever imagined. At precisely 3 p.m., the screen flickered, and there he was. Elon Musk's calm, thoughtful face filled the screen. He was sitting in what looked like a minimalist office, surrounded by sleek, modern furniture, with soft lighting that gave the room an almost serene atmosphere. Musk's expression was relaxed, and his eyes sparkled with curiosity as he adjusted the camera. "Ethan," Musk said, a small smile forming on his face, "I'm glad we could make this work. How are you doing?" Ethan swallowed the nervous lump in his throat, forcing a smile. "I'm doing great, thank you. I'm honored to have this chance to speak with you." Musk nodded. "It's not every day that I get a challenge from someone your age. So, let's hear it. What is it you want to discuss? What do you want to debate?" Ethan took a deep breath, settling himself into the moment. This was it, the moment he had been preparing for. He had studied Musk's work, watched his interviews, and thought long and hard about what to say. He wasn't just going to talk about facts or ideas. He was going to challenge Musk in a way that would make him think, make him see things from a different perspective. "Well," Ethan began, his voice steady but full of purpose, "I've been following your work for years, especially with SpaceX and Tesla. I think you've done some incredible things, and you've definitely changed the way people think about space travel and sustainable energy. But I believe there are aspects of technology in the future that you haven't fully explored yet." Musk's eyebrows raised slightly, and he leaned forward a bit, clearly intrigued. "Go on," he said, encouraging Ethan to continue. Ethan took another breath, feeling the weight of the moment but pushing forward. "You've said before that the future of humanity lies in space, that we need to become a multi-planetary species to survive. But what if there's another way? What if we focus not just on leaving Earth, but on making Earth sustainable for the long term? We're facing so many challenges: climate change, resource depletion, pollution, and instead of trying to escape to Mars, what if we invest more in technologies that can help us fix our home?" Musk sat back in his chair, his expression thoughtful. He didn't interrupt, but his eyes were intense, clearly processing what Ethan had said. "That's an interesting perspective," Musk said slowly, his voice calm but measured. "But we can't just ignore the fact that Earth is vulnerable. We're facing huge risks here, whether it's from climate change, nuclear war, or the potential for an extinction-level event. Space is not just a backup plan. It's our way of ensuring the survival of humanity. But I agree, there's a balance. We need to address Earth's challenges too." Ethan nodded, knowing this was just the beginning of the debate. But space isn't going to fix everything here. What if the technologies we develop for space could also be used to solve problems here on Earth? Take Tesla's electric cars, for example. They're a great step in reducing our reliance on fossil fuels, but we need more. We need energy solutions that aren't just for the elite, but for everyone. Something that's scalable, something that can change the world. Musk's gaze sharpened. "I'm not suggesting that we abandon solving Earth's problems," he replied. "In fact, Tesla's mission is all about sustainability. But we have to think about the bigger picture. Our civilization is fragile. Look at how dependent we are on technology and energy. One massive disruption, and everything can fall apart. I believe that making humanity a multi-planetary species is insurance for the future." Ethan's mind whirred, his thoughts quickly analyzing Musk's response. "I understand that, But what if we put more effort into developing technologies here that help us better adapt to our environment instead of focusing on escaping it? Like regenerative energy, space farming techniques that can be used in developing nations, or sustainable food sources. What if the focus shifted to making life here more resilient instead of just moving away? Musk sat up straighter now, clearly engaged. You're proposing we focus on adapting to Earth instead of escaping to another planet? He asked, as if considering the idea for the first time. Ethan nodded, his words flowing more easily now. Exactly. Think about it. The technologies we develop to make life better on Earth, things like clean water systems, vertical farming, or carbon capture technologies, could also make space exploration easier in the long run. It's about innovating with purpose. We're not talking about choosing one over the other, but about leveraging the same technologies to tackle both problems. For a moment, Musk was silent. Ethan could almost see the wheels turning in his mind. Musk had always been known for thinking outside the box, for seeing opportunities in places others missed. But this was a challenge, something different. Ethan wasn't just another admirer of Musk's work. He was someone who saw a new path, one that could fundamentally change the way humanity approached both Earth and space. Finally, Musk spoke again, his voice calm but with a hint of admiration. You've given me a lot to think about, Ethan. I'll be honest, I'm not sure I agree with you completely, but I can see the logic in what you're saying. I appreciate your approach. It's not just about presenting facts, it's about challenging ideas, and I respect that. Ethan felt a surge of pride. He had done it. He hadn't just debated Musk. He had made Musk stop and think. It wasn't about winning or losing. It was about starting a conversation, sparking new ideas. So, Musk continued, if we're going to take this to a public debate, we'll need to define the stakes. What are we really trying to prove here? It's not just about who's right or wrong. It's about moving the conversation forward. Ethan smiled, his mind already racing with ideas for the next step. I think it's about showing people that there's more than one path to the future. We can make a real difference here on Earth while also preparing for the future in space. It's not about choosing one or the other. It's about finding a way to make both work. Musk nodded slowly. Well, I'm intrigued. Let's see where this goes. We'll start with a small conversation in front of a live audience. If it goes well, we can consider a larger debate. Ethan felt a rush of exhilaration. This was it, the beginning of something huge. He wasn't just going to challenge Elon Musk. He was going to change the way the world saw the future. As the call ended, Ethan leaned back in his chair, his mind racing. The debate wasn't over. It had only just begun. He had taken the first step, but there was much more to come. And now, the world was watching. Ethan sat at his desk, his laptop open in front of him, scanning through pages of notes he'd been making over the past few days. His mind was racing. This was the moment he had been building toward. The debate with Elon Musk was no longer a hypothetical event. It was happening. The preparation required was immense. His mind buzzed with ideas, questions, and strategies. But there was one thing he was certain of. He couldn't just approach this like a regular school project. This was his chance to make a lasting impact, not just on Musk, but on the entire world. The video call with Musk had been nothing short of incredible. Although Musk had been calm and measured throughout, Ethan could sense that his challenge had genuinely sparked something in the billionaire inventor. Musk's respect for Ethan's ideas was evident, but that didn't mean he would go easy on him. Ethan knew that in order to succeed, he would have to go deeper, think more critically, and push his ideas to their limits. There was no room for mediocrity. He was up against one of the brightest minds in the world. All right, Ethan muttered to himself, running his fingers over his keyboard. Time to focus. This debate isn't just about facts. It's about challenging the way people think. He had already started to map out his arguments. He would dive into the environmental crises Earth was facing, showcasing the urgency of finding sustainable solutions here, not just venturing into space. He planned to highlight innovations that could make life on Earth more sustainable, technologies like clean energy solutions, vertical farming, and advanced water purification systems. These were the tools that could potentially turn the tide on climate change and resource depletion. But Ethan knew that simply listing ideas wouldn't be enough. He had to show Musk and the world that these innovations were not only feasible but could be developed in parallel with space exploration. They weren't mutually exclusive. Space could be the ultimate backup plan, but Earth needed solutions now. At the same time, Ethan knew he had to anticipate Musk's responses. Musk had already stated that space was humanity's insurance policy, something that could safeguard human civilization in case of catastrophic events on Earth. Musk's deep commitment to advancing space exploration through SpaceX was driven by this belief. Ethan understood this logic. But what Musk didn't seem to understand, Ethan thought, was that humans needed to prioritize Earth's survival while preparing for the future. He sighed, realizing that the task ahead of him was monumental. This was no longer about just presenting facts. It was about presenting a vision of the future that was compelling and accessible, one that could unite people behind a shared cause. Ethan wasn't just fighting for his own ideas anymore. He was fighting for the future of humanity. With his mind buzzing with ideas, Ethan stood up and paced around his room, trying to process everything. He looked out the window and saw the familiar view of his suburban neighborhood. The houses lined up neatly in rows, the streets empty except for the occasional car passing by. The world outside seemed so ordinary, yet everything felt different now. He wasn't just a kid anymore. He was a force, ready to challenge the biggest figures in the world. His phone buzzed, pulling him out of his thoughts. It was a message from his mom. "Mom, hey, honey, are you doing okay? You've been so focused on this debate. I'm really proud of you, but don't forget to take care of yourself too. You can always talk to me if you need a break." Ethan smiled and typed back quickly, appreciating the reminder. She was always there for him, always supportive, even when the weight of the world seemed to rest on his shoulders. "Ethan, I'm fine, Mom. Just preparing. I can't mess this up." "Mom, I know you won't. You've got this. But remember, it's okay to take a step back sometimes. Don't let the pressure get to you." Ethan put his phone down and took a deep breath. His mom was right. He had been so consumed with the debate that he had hardly taken a moment for himself. There was a fine line between preparation and obsession. Maybe it was time to find a balance. After all, this wasn't just about winning. It was about using his platform for good. The next morning, Ethan found himself at his computer early, poring over a new batch of research he'd collected overnight. He spent hours sifting through articles, scientific papers, and even older debates about space exploration. He studied Musk's past arguments on why space was necessary for humanity's survival, and he scrutinized the details of SpaceX's Mars plans. Musk's arguments weren't invincible. Ethan could see holes in them, gaps that could be filled with the right facts, the right perspectives. It was all about presenting a case that Musk hadn't fully considered. After all, even the greatest minds sometimes needed a little nudge. By midday, Ethan had his arguments mostly sorted out. He would argue that space exploration was important, yes, but it couldn't be the sole focus of humanity's efforts. Earth, as fragile as it was, needed immediate attention. The climate crisis, resource depletion, and growing inequality were all problems that had to be addressed now, not in the distant future when humanity might be living on Mars. But even though he had a clear idea of his argument, Ethan still felt a deep sense of nervousness. What if Musk had already thought of everything he was going to say? What if Musk had a response that would shut him down before he even had the chance to finish his first point? He shook the thought from his head. "No," he told himself. "I've got this. I've prepared for this." Later that evening, after a long day of preparation, Ethan sat down at the dinner table with his family. His mom, dad, and little sister were all eating, but Ethan found it hard to focus on the conversation. His mind kept drifting back to the debate. His parents, sensing his distraction, exchanged glances but didn't press him. "So, Ethan," his dad finally asked, breaking the silence, "how's the big debate prep going?" Ethan looked up, giving a small smile. "It's going well, but it's a lot more work than I thought. There's so much to consider." His mom smiled warmly. "That's a good sign. It means you're taking it seriously." Ethan nodded, but he still felt that pressure building inside of him. "This is bigger than anything I've ever done. What if I fail?" "Are you nervous?" his little sister asked innocently. Ethan hesitated for a moment before answering. "A little bit, but I know I can do it." His sister beamed. "You'll win. I know you will." The innocence of her confidence gave Ethan a small sense of peace. It reminded him that, despite the immense pressure, he wasn't doing this alone. His family believed in him, and they were with him every step of the way. As the days ticked by, the anticipation of the debate grew. Musk's team contacted Ethan with the final details. The date was set for 2 weeks from now, and it would be streamed live to millions of viewers around the world. The stakes had never been higher, and Ethan knew he was ready. He would give it everything he had. But for now, he would keep preparing, refining his ideas, and making sure that, when the time came, he would be ready to stand his ground. The world was watching, and this was his moment to show that even a 10-year-old with an IQ of 162 could challenge the greatest minds on the planet. The day before the debate, Ethan woke up earlier than usual, his mind already racing with the thought of what was to come. His bedroom felt colder than usual, and the soft hum of his clock seemed louder than ever. He couldn't shake the anxiety that had settled deep inside him. Tomorrow was the day that would change everything, the moment he had been building toward for months. There would be no turning back now. He had to get this right. He glanced over at his desk, where piles of notes and research papers were scattered in chaotic disarray. But in the midst of the clutter, there was a sense of order. He had prepared. He had learned everything he could about the debate and the points Musk was likely to bring up. Ethan was as ready as he could be. Yet, there was still a nagging feeling in the pit of his stomach. "Focus," he whispered to himself, taking in a deep breath. "You've got this." Downstairs, the kitchen was already bustling with the usual morning routine. His mom was cooking breakfast, and his dad was sipping coffee, scrolling through the newspaper. His little sister, Emma, was sitting at the table, her eyes glued to her tablet. "Morning, Ethan." Emma greeted him with a bright smile, her voice full of excitement. "Are you nervous?" Ethan smiled back, even though he wasn't sure he felt like smiling at all. "A little. It's tomorrow, you know? You're going to do awesome," Emma said, not even a hint of doubt in her voice. "I just know it. You're the smartest person I know." Ethan chuckled. "Thanks, Em." His mom looked up from the stove, her warm eyes full of pride. "Are you ready for tomorrow, sweetie? I know you've been working really hard." "I think so," Ethan said, sitting down at the table. "I've done everything I can. But it's still a little scary." His dad nodded, putting his coffee cup down. "You've got more courage than most adults I know. You're taking on a huge challenge, and that's something to be proud of." Ethan's eyes flickered to his dad, who had always been his steady source of encouragement. "I just don't want to mess up. This is big, Dad. This could change everything." "You won't mess up," his dad reassured him. "Just be yourself. You've already done the hard work. Tomorrow, it's just about sharing your ideas with the world. And no matter what happens, we're all proud of you." Ethan nodded, feeling comforted by his dad's words. The nerves were still there, but the familiar sound of his family's voices gave him a sense of calm. They were right. He had done the work. Now, all that was left was to deliver. Later that afternoon, Ethan sat at his desk again, reviewing his notes. He felt an almost overwhelming urge to practice his points one last time, but there was no time for that. He had to rest. The debate was tomorrow, and no amount of last-minute preparation would make him more ready. What he needed now was focus and clarity. His phone buzzed, and he glanced down at the notification. It was a message from his mom. "Mom, I know you're anxious, but remember, you've been preparing for this moment for months. Take a deep breath and relax. You've got this." Ethan smiled at the message. Sometimes, the simplest reminders were the most powerful. He typed back quickly. "Ethan, thanks, Mom. I'm trying. Just need to stay calm." With that, he closed his laptop and turned off the lights in his room. Tonight, he would sleep. Tomorrow, everything would fall into place. The next day, Ethan woke up to the sound of his alarm clock buzzing. It felt like he had just fallen asleep, yet the sun was already rising. His heart began to race again as he pulled himself out of bed. Today was the day of the debate. He quickly dressed, pulling on a simple but crisp button-down shirt and jeans. His mom had insisted he wear something presentable for the debate, and though Ethan wasn't fond of wearing anything too fancy, he knew it was a small detail that would help him feel more confident. Downstairs, The kitchen smelled of fresh coffee and pancakes. His dad was already at the table, scanning over his emails while Emma was busy eating her cereal. "You ready?" his dad asked, looking up with a smile. Ethan nodded, though the butterflies in his stomach seemed to grow with each passing second. "I think so." "You've prepared for this," his dad said, standing up and patting him on the back. "There's nothing more you need to do. Just be yourself and let your ideas speak for themselves." "Yeah, you're going to do great," Emma added, her excitement contagious. "You're the smartest kid ever." Ethan smiled, feeling a little more at ease. The pressure was still there, but he could feel his family's support like a shield around him. "Thanks, Em." "Thanks, Dad." After breakfast, Ethan grabbed his backpack, loaded with all of his notes and research. His mom drove him to the venue, a modern conference hall in the city that was designed for events like this one. It was a massive building, sleek and glassy, with an imposing feel to it. When they pulled into the parking lot, Ethan couldn't help but feel a rush of awe mixed with anxiety. "This is it," Ethan muttered to himself. His palms were clammy, and his heart was beating faster than he wanted it to. But he wasn't going to back down. He couldn't. This was his chance to do something important, something bigger than himself. As they entered the building, they were led through a maze of hallways and corridors. Ethan's eyes were wide, taking in the bustling crew setting up for the event, all the while trying to push the nerves aside. He would meet Musk soon, face to face. There would be cameras. There would be an audience. It was real now. They finally reached the green room, a small, quiet space for speakers to wait before the event. Ethan's mom hugged him tightly, giving him a few encouraging words, while his dad patted him on the back. "Go get him, kid," his dad said. Ethan took a deep breath. "I'm ready." As the clock ticked down, Ethan was ushered to the stage, where the debate would take place. It was set up like a talk show, with two chairs facing each other under the spotlight, an audience seated in rows before him. The stage crew was bustling around, getting everything prepared. Ethan took his seat in one of the chairs, feeling the weight of the moment sink in. The lights above him shone brightly, but they couldn't dull the pounding of his heart. A moment later, the door on the other side of the stage opened. Elon Musk walked in, dressed in a black jacket and jeans, his presence commanding the room. He gave Ethan a small nod of acknowledgement as he took his seat across from him. "You ready, Ethan?" Musk asked, his voice calm and composed, the faintest hint of a smile on his lips. Ethan met Musk's gaze, his nerves settling into determination. "I'm ready." The debate was about to begin. The world was watching. And this was only the beginning. The stage was set. The cameras were rolling. Ethan could hear the low murmur of the audience as they settled into their seats, anticipation hanging in the air like static electricity. This was it, the moment he had prepared for, the moment that would define everything. Ethan sat in the spotlight, his palms slightly sweaty as he glanced at Elon Musk across from him. Musk's cool demeanor was unshaken, his eyes calm and focused. He seemed to be in his element, as if this kind of thing was second nature to him. But Ethan knew this was no ordinary debate. This wasn't just about words, it was about vision, about the future of humanity. The moderator, a well-known tech journalist, stood at the front of the stage. With a professional smile, he addressed the audience. "Good evening, everyone, and welcome to one of the most anticipated debates of the year. Tonight, we have a remarkable young challenger, Ethan Turner, a 10-year-old prodigy with an IQ of 162, who has taken on the challenge of debating none other than Elon Musk, the visionary behind SpaceX, Tesla, and numerous groundbreaking ventures. This debate will center around the future of humanity. Is our focus best placed on exploring space, or should we direct our energies towards solving the crises we face here on Earth? Gentlemen, the floor is yours." Ethan's heart pounded in his chest. This was it. He took a deep breath, steadying himself. He glanced at Musk, who had already positioned himself comfortably in his chair, ready to respond to anything Ethan might throw his way. The moderator gestured to Elon Musk first. "Mr. Musk, you've long been an advocate for space exploration. Please share your thoughts on why you believe space is the best path forward for humanity." Musk leaned forward, his eyes sharp, his voice calm and confident. "Space is our backup plan. It's our safety net for the future. If we stay confined to Earth and fail to invest in space, we risk putting all of humanity in danger. Asteroids, climate change, pandemics, these are all threats we cannot fully control. Space exploration offers us the opportunity to become a multi-planetary species. If we're going to survive in the long term, we need to have a plan for what happens if Earth becomes uninhabitable. It's not just a luxury, it's a necessity for humanity's survival. Ethan listened closely, absorbing every word. Musk's argument was compelling, as it always was. But Ethan wasn't here to agree. He was here to challenge, to push back against the idea that space should be humanity's main priority, especially when Earth was in crisis. Ethan cleared his throat. The moment had come. He leaned forward, his eyes never leaving Musk's. "Mr. Musk, I respect everything you've done for space exploration. But don't you think it's a little short-sighted to focus so much on the future of space when the planet we're living on right now is in such dire straits?" He paused, allowing his words to sink in. We're facing a climate emergency, the destruction of ecosystems, resource depletion, and social inequality. What happens if we don't fix those problems first? We could be building colonies on Mars, but if we haven't taken care of Earth, how will we sustain ourselves when we get there? Space is important, yes, but we need to put the same energy into fixing the planet we already have. There was a shift in the air, a collective breath held by the audience. Ethan's words hung between them, bold and unexpected. Elon Musk sat back, his expression thoughtful, but there was no sign of anger or frustration. He was accustomed to being challenged. This was the part of the debate he loved, the intellectual exchange, the scrutiny. "Let me be clear," Musk replied, his voice steady. "I don't believe space should take priority over Earth. The goal is not to abandon Earth. It's about securing humanity's future by exploring options beyond this planet. Yes, we have pressing problems on Earth, and yes, we should work to solve them. But I don't see these two things as mutually exclusive. In fact, innovation in space technology has the potential to help us solve some of the problems on Earth." Ethan raised an eyebrow, intrigued. "Innovation in space technology helping Earth? Could you elaborate on that?" Musk nodded. "Absolutely. Take solar power, for example. A lot of the advancements we've made in solar energy came from the technologies developed for space missions. The technology to capture and store solar energy efficiently is one example of how space exploration can provide breakthroughs that benefit life on Earth. Or look at satellite technology. Many of the systems that help us track weather, predict natural disasters, or improve communication networks came from space missions. Space exploration leads to new technologies, new materials, and new ways of thinking. Those innovations don't just stay in space. They can come back to Earth and improve our lives." Ethan listened carefully, recognizing the truth in Musk's words. He knew Musk had a point. Space exploration had already contributed to Earth's technological progress in many ways. But still, Ethan couldn't help but feel that Musk was downplaying the urgency of the challenges Earth was facing right now. "I see what you mean, but don't you think that's a bit of a distraction?" Ethan countered, his voice gaining confidence. "We're on the brink of environmental collapse, and our resources are dwindling. Climate change is causing disasters worldwide, and there are millions of people living in poverty who don't have access to basic needs. It's not just about innovation. It's about survival. We can't just innovate our way out of this crisis. We need to fix things now, on Earth, before we even think about leaving it behind." The room grew quiet. The audience was riveted, leaning in to hear the back and forth between the two. The moderator gave a subtle nod, signaling for the conversation to continue. Musk sat up straighter, his eyes focused intently on Ethan. "I agree that we need to address the issues you mentioned, but I don't think we can look at these problems in isolation. The energy crisis, the climate crisis, the loss of biodiversity, these problems aren't going to be solved with just policy changes or better technology alone. We need to think bigger. Space exploration isn't just about going to another planet. It's about pushing the limits of human capability, about inspiring the next generation of thinkers and innovators who will find solutions to all these problems, both on Earth and beyond." Ethan felt a flicker of doubt in his mind. Musk's words were undeniably inspiring. He had a vision for the future, a vision that wasn't just about leaving Earth, but about pushing humanity's boundaries. And yet, Ethan couldn't shake the feeling that Musk was too focused on the long term, too willing to look beyond the planet in front of them. I understand your point, Ethan said, his voice thoughtful, but I think we need to be realistic about the time we have left. The future of humanity is important, but it's the future of Earth that matters right now. We can't wait until we've solved every problem on Earth to start exploring space, but we also can't wait until space is our backup plan. We need to act now, on both fronts, saving the planet and exploring the universe. Musk nodded, his expression unreadable. I agree with you, Ethan. We need to act, but we can't let one vision of the future overshadow the other. Both are crucial to the survival and prosperity of humanity. The debate continued, with each side presenting compelling arguments and challenging the other's views. As the minutes ticked by, Ethan's confidence grew. The more Musk spoke, the more Ethan realized that this wasn't just about a contest of intelligence. This was about a shared goal, to protect humanity's future. The question was how to best achieve that goal. When the debate finally came to a close, the moderator turned to the audience. That concludes our debate. We've heard powerful arguments from both sides, and I think it's safe to say that the future of humanity is a topic we should all be thinking about. Ethan, Elon, thank you both for your incredible insights. Ethan took a deep breath, his heart still racing. It was over. The tension that had built up over the past weeks slowly began to dissipate. He had done it. He had stood toe-to-toe with one of the greatest minds in the world and held his ground. As the applause rang through the auditorium, Ethan looked at Musk, who gave him a small, respectful nod. For a moment, there was mutual understanding between them. Two minds, fighting for the same cause, just with different ways of getting there. The future was uncertain, but one thing was clear. This debate had only been the beginning. The applause echoed in Ethan's ears as he stood there on the stage, his heart still pounding in his chest. The moderator's voice seemed distant, almost muffled, as he wrapped up the evening, praising both Elon Musk and Ethan for their remarkable performance. The cameras flashed, catching every moment of the debate, every flicker of emotion on their faces. Ethan felt a sense of surreal disbelief. It was over. He looked over at Musk, who was already standing, his calm and collected demeanor still intact. Musk gave him a brief nod before turning to shake the moderator's hand, flashing his signature smile. There was no sign of animosity between them, no visible frustration. The debate had been intense, but there was an unspoken understanding between them now, two minds with different visions, but both dedicated to improving the future of humanity. As the crowd slowly began to dissipate, Ethan felt a tap on his shoulder. He turned to see his parents standing behind him, their eyes wide with pride. His mom, usually composed, was visibly emotional, wiping away a few tears as she wrapped her arms around him. "You did it," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "I'm so proud of you." Ethan blinked back his own tears, feeling the weight of the moment settle over him. This wasn't just about the debate anymore. It was about the journey, the months of preparation, the sleepless nights, the challenges he had faced along the way. It was about proving to himself that he could do something big, something that mattered. And now, in this moment, he had. "Thanks, Mom," Ethan murmured, hugging her tightly. His dad joined the embrace, patting him on the back. "You were incredible, Ethan. You held your own against Elon Musk. That's no small feat." "I didn't expect it to be easy," Ethan said, his voice a little shaky but full of conviction. "But I think we got somewhere. It wasn't just about proving who's right. It was about starting a conversation. And that's what matters." His dad nodded. "Exactly. You didn't just take on a debate. You took on an entire idea, an entire vision. And you did it with grace." Ethan looked around at the venue. The lights were dimming, and the crew was already packing up the equipment. The buzz of excitement in the air was palpable. Yet, amid all the chaos, a sense of quiet settled over him. The anticipation, the tension, it had all been worth it. Later that evening, after the event had concluded and they had returned to their hotel, Ethan couldn't help but replay the entire debate in his mind. There were moments when he had felt completely sure of himself, and there were others when he had doubted whether his arguments were strong enough. But what mattered was that he had stayed true to his beliefs. He hadn't let the pressure of the moment sway him. In the silence of his hotel room, as he lay on the bed staring at the ceiling, Ethan couldn't shake the thought that had been nagging at him all night. What now? The debate had opened his eyes to the immense challenges humanity faced, but it also had opened doors he had never imagined. The world was watching, and his words, his ideas, could have an impact. That realization was both exhilarating and terrifying. Ethan had challenged Elon Musk, and though they had disagreed, he knew Musk had respected him as a worthy adversary. But what would come of it? What would his next step be? His phone buzzed on the nightstand, interrupting his thoughts. Ethan reached for it, seeing a text from an unknown number. Unknown number, great debate today. You held your ground. I'd like to discuss something with you. A proposal for the future. We should talk. Ethan's heart skipped a beat. He quickly tapped the message open, trying to make sense of it. Who could this be? It didn't take long for him to recognize the number. It was a message from one of Elon Musk's closest associates, someone who had been in the background of the debate, managing the logistics and communication for Musk's team. Ethan's mind raced. This was big. This could be the opportunity he had been waiting for. Ethan quickly typed a reply. Ethan, thank you. I'd love to hear more about your proposal. When would be a good time to talk? Within moments, the reply came through. Unknown number. How about tomorrow? We'll arrange a meeting. Looking forward to it. Ethan sat back, his mind reeling. What was this proposal? What could it be? His thoughts were a whirlwind of excitement and nerves. It was one thing to debate ideas in a public forum. It was another to be offered a potential opportunity to collaborate on something with someone as influential as Musk. He couldn't sleep. His mind wouldn't let him rest, and every thought seemed to spin around the idea of what could come next. This was the moment that could change everything. The next morning, Ethan was pacing in his hotel room. He hadn't expected the conversation to come so soon, but here it was, an opportunity that could alter the course of his future. His parents had already left for breakfast, giving him some time alone to think. He couldn't remember a time when he had been this nervous and excited at the same time. At precisely 10 a.m., his phone rang, the number flashing across the screen confirming that this was the moment. Hello? Ethan answered, trying to keep his voice steady. Ethan, it's Jacob from Elon's team. The voice on the other end said, we were impressed with your performance yesterday. Elon has a proposition for you. He's interested in collaborating on a new initiative that combines space exploration with innovative Earth-based solutions. He believes you have a unique perspective that could be valuable in shaping this project. Ethan's heart raced. This was real. This was happening. I'm listening, Ethan said, trying to keep his voice calm despite the thrill bubbling inside him. We'd like to arrange a meeting with Elon soon to discuss the specifics, Jacob continued. He's eager to hear more of your ideas and see how we can work together to tackle both Earth's problems and the challenges of space exploration. This could be the start of something big. Ethan's mind was spinning. He had been expecting a follow-up, but this was beyond anything he had imagined. Absolutely, Ethan replied, trying to maintain control of his emotions. I'm looking forward to it. Thank you for reaching out. The call ended, but Ethan sat there for several long seconds, his mind in overdrive. He had just been invited into a conversation that could reshape everything he believed about the future of humanity. His ideas, his vision, were being taken seriously. This was just the beginning. The future wasn't waiting. It was unfolding before his eyes. The next few days felt like a blur for Ethan. The anticipation of meeting Elon Musk was overwhelming. His parents were equally excited, but they could sense the weight of this moment on their son. They had watched him grow from an inquisitive child into a thoughtful, driven young man. They knew this meeting could be pivotal for his future, but they also understood how much pressure Ethan was under. Ethan found himself in his hotel room, trying to organize his thoughts. The offer to meet with Musk had come through quickly, and now he had a chance to influence the course of something monumental. He knew this wasn't just about him. It was about the future of humanity, just like the debate had been. He needed to take the opportunity seriously. Ethan pulled out his notebook, which was filled with scribbled thoughts and ideas. He had always been an avid note-taker, and the pages were filled with wild theories, scientific concepts, and questions about the world's future. But now, as he flipped through the pages, something clicked. He didn't need to have all the answers. What mattered was his perspective, his ability to look at things from an angle that others couldn't, the fresh ideas he could bring to the table. The knock on the door broke his concentration. His mom entered, a smile on her face as she looked at Ethan. "Big day, huh?" she said, sitting next to him. "How are you feeling?" Ethan shrugged, his nerves betraying him. "Nervous. Excited. Mostly, I don't know what to expect. This could be the most important thing I'll ever do." "You've worked hard for this moment," his mom said, placing a hand on his shoulder. "Just remember, you don't have to have all the answers. You've already shown that you think differently, and that's what matters. Don't overthink it." Ethan nodded, appreciating his mom's calming presence. She was right. He had to trust himself and his instincts. He could think on his feet, and that was something no one could take away from him. The meeting was scheduled for 2 p.m., and the moment had arrived. Ethan and his parents were escorted into a sleek, modern conference room inside a private building, one of Musk's business hubs. The walls were adorned with futuristic images of rockets, electric cars, and space exploration. There was a sense of awe in the air, but Ethan was determined to stay focused. This was about ideas, not just technology. As they walked in, Elon Musk was standing by a large window, looking out over the city skyline. He turned as they entered, a smile crossing his face. He was dressed casually, in his usual black t-shirt and jeans, exuding an air of familiarity despite his status as one of the most influential people in the world. "Ethan, it's great to finally meet you in person," Musk said, extending his hand. Ethan shook his hand firmly, trying to mask the nervous excitement he felt. "Thank you for having me. I'm really looking forward to hearing what you have in mind." "Likewise," Musk said with a nod. "I've been following your ideas, and I think we have some shared goals. We're facing enormous challenges here on Earth: climate change, resource depletion, poverty, and at the same time, we need to think about the future. Space exploration is part of that, but I believe there's a way to integrate the two. That's where you come in, Ethan." Ethan's eyes widened. He had expected a more formal conversation, but Musk was already diving right in. He leaned forward, intrigued. "You see, the problem with space exploration is that it's often seen as something that exists in a vacuum, something separate from the problems we face on Earth. But what if we could merge the two? What if we could use the advancements we make in space to help solve the crises we face right now? And what if someone like you could help us bridge that gap, coming up with solutions that no one else is thinking about?" Ethan's mind was spinning. He had always believed that the challenges of Earth and space exploration were connected, but to hear Musk echo those thoughts was a revelation. It wasn't about choosing one over the other. It was about finding a way to make both work together. "That's exactly what I've been thinking," Ethan said, his voice growing more confident. "Space isn't just an escape. It's a tool that can help us develop new technologies that could improve life here on Earth. But at the same time, we need to focus on immediate solutions for our planet, because space can't solve all our problems. If we don't fix things on Earth first, any success in space might feel hollow." Musk nodded, his eyes gleaming with approval. "Exactly. But it's not going to be easy. The systems we need to put in place are complex. We need to think about new energy sources, sustainable technologies, and methods of resource management that work both in space and on Earth. And we need the next generation of thinkers, like you, to help us come up with new approaches." Ethan felt a surge of excitement. This wasn't just a theoretical conversation anymore. Musk wasn't asking him to sit on the sidelines. He was offering him a chance to shape the future, one that could have a real impact on both Earth and the stars. "What kind of project are you envisioning?" Ethan asked, his curiosity piqued. Musk took a seat at the table, gesturing for Ethan and his parents to do the same. He folded his hands together and leaned in. "We're exploring the idea of a new initiative, something I call Earth-Mars Synergy. The basic idea is that we'll use space exploration, particularly through the development of Mars colonies, to drive innovation that benefits Earth. This could mean everything from renewable energy advancements to new farming techniques to technologies that help us recycle and repurpose materials. The goal is to create a symbiotic relationship between the two, where the lessons we learn in space help us solve the problems we face on Earth, and vice versa." Ethan's mind raced. The potential here was enormous. This wasn't just about building rockets and sending humans to Mars. This was about creating a sustainable future for both planets, a vision that aligned with everything he had believed in during the debate. "I'm on board," Ethan said, his voice filled with determination. "I've been thinking about ways to integrate space tech with Earth's needs for years. But I think we need to think beyond just technology. We need to involve people, real communities, who can be part of this shift. The people who are most affected by the challenges on Earth need to be part of the solution. And they need to have a voice in what comes next." Musk's eyes lit up. "That's the kind of thinking we need. The future can't be built by the few at the top. It has to be inclusive. It has to be global." Ethan felt a sense of purpose wash over him. This wasn't just a career opportunity. It was a chance to change the world. As the meeting concluded, Musk gave Ethan a reassuring smile. "You've got a lot of big ideas, Ethan. I'm excited to see where you take this. We'll be in touch soon to start putting things into motion." This is just the beginning. Ethan left the meeting feeling a combination of exhilaration and exhaustion. He had stepped into a room with one of the world's most visionary thinkers and left with a challenge that could shape his future. The path ahead was uncertain, but it was a path filled with possibilities. And for the first time in his life, Ethan knew exactly where he was going. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough? The days following the meeting with Elon Musk felt like a whirlwind. Ethan's mind was racing as he processed the enormity of what had just unfolded. The Earth-Mars Synergy project was no small thing. It wasn't just a job or a typical venture. It was a vision, a new frontier where innovation could solve some of Earth's most pressing problems. And Musk had invited him to help build it. Ethan knew this was the opportunity of a lifetime. But there was a catch. He wasn't just going to sit back and let others take the lead. Musk had given him a challenge, and Ethan intended to meet it head-on. For the next few days, he worked tirelessly, drafting ideas, sketching out blueprints in his notebooks, and connecting with experts in various fields. He'd always been a quick learner, but this was different. Now, he was diving deep into fields like sustainable agriculture, renewable energy systems, and the technologies needed for space travel, all while trying to keep his schoolwork in balance. The pressure was immense, but it was also thrilling. He was living the dream he had once imagined when he was younger. His parents had noticed the change in him. Ethan was no longer the boy who just played with his toys or read books in his spare time. He was transforming into someone who understood the weight of responsibility that came with these big ideas. But they also knew this was what he had been working toward all his life. His natural curiosity, his intelligence. It was all leading to this moment. One evening, after a particularly exhausting day of research and brainstorming, Ethan sat at the dinner table with his parents. His mom looked up from her plate, noticing the tiredness in his eyes. "You look like you've been working nonstop," she said, her tone filled with concern. "Are you getting enough rest?" Ethan smiled faintly, rubbing his eyes. "It's a lot, but I'm fine. There's just so much to figure out. I have to make sure the ideas I'm coming up with are actually feasible." His dad, always the pragmatist, nodded. "You've always been driven, Ethan. But don't burn yourself out. You can't change the world overnight. This project will take time. You don't have to solve everything right now." "I know," Ethan said, exhaling. "It's just, when you get a chance like this, it feels like everything is riding on it. I don't want to disappoint anyone, especially Elon." His mom reached across the table and placed her hand on his. "Elon chose you for a reason, Ethan. He sees something in you. And we see it too. But you have to trust that you're capable. It's not about being perfect. It's about doing your best, and that's more than enough." Ethan nodded, feeling comforted by his mom's words. It was true. He had to trust himself more. He had already taken the first step. Now he needed to follow through. Over the next couple of weeks, Ethan's ideas began to take shape. He had been given access to some of the best minds in science and technology, and they had become his sounding board. They were all eager to help bring his vision to life. But there was something about his approach that resonated with them. Ethan didn't just think about technology. He thought about how it could be applied to real-world problems, how it could impact communities on Earth while simultaneously advancing humanity's goals in space. One afternoon, As Ethan sat at his desk, a call came through. It was from Jacob, one of Musk's team members. "Ethan, we're moving forward with the Earth-Mars Synergy project," Jacob said, his voice filled with excitement. "We want to start developing a prototype for the sustainable energy systems we've discussed. We're bringing you in to lead the team that will design it." Ethan's heart raced. This was it. He was being trusted with the next big step. "Of course," Ethan replied, his voice steady despite the rush of adrenaline. "I'll start brainstorming right away. We need to consider how the energy system can work both on Mars and here on Earth. The dual-purpose aspect is crucial." "Exactly. We're also looking into new forms of energy storage, things that are compact yet powerful enough for space missions. But they need to be scalable for Earth-based applications as well. This is where your expertise and ideas will come into play." Ethan could feel the pressure, but it wasn't a burden. It was a driving force. This was what he had been training for, without even knowing it. Everything he had studied, every book he had read, every question he had asked, all of it had prepared him for this moment. The conversation ended, and Ethan immediately started drafting plans for the energy system. He had a rough idea in mind, but there was so much to consider. The system had to work in both space and on Earth, which meant it had to be versatile and adaptable. The solution would need to combine solar power, advanced battery storage, and perhaps even fusion energy to meet the extreme demands of both environments. As the days passed, Ethan worked closely with the team Musk had assembled. They were a group of brilliant engineers and scientists, but it was Ethan's unique perspective that brought them all together. He didn't think like the others. Where they saw obstacles, he saw opportunities. Where they saw limitations, he saw potential for growth. Soon, the prototype began to take shape. They designed an energy generator that could harness solar energy in space, but also be efficient enough to provide power to entire cities on Earth. It was groundbreaking, to say the least. One afternoon, as Ethan sat with the team reviewing their progress, Musk walked into the room. He greeted everyone with his usual calm demeanor, but looked directly at Ethan, a smile tugging at the corners of his mouth. "Ethan," Musk said, "I've been hearing great things about your work. This prototype is something special. It's exactly what we need to make both Earth and Mars more sustainable." Ethan stood up, feeling a surge of pride. "Thank you. But it wouldn't be possible without the team's expertise. We've been working together to combine all our ideas." Musk nodded. "That's what I like about you, Ethan. You don't just take credit. You understand that innovation is a team effort. But you're the one who's pushed us to think bigger. That's why I'm excited about what's next." Ethan felt a rush of excitement. What's next? He had already accomplished so much, but it felt like this was just the beginning. There were still so many more challenges ahead, so much more to do. "You've got big things ahead of you, Ethan," Musk continued. "This is going to change the world, and it's only going to get bigger." Ethan stood there, feeling a sense of clarity wash over him. This wasn't just about the energy system or the technology. It was about creating a future where space and Earth were intertwined, where progress was shared between the two. This was the start of something far greater than he had ever imagined. And he was ready. As the weeks continued to fly by, Ethan's role in the Earth-Mars Synergy project became more pivotal. Every day, he found himself more immersed in this new world of cutting-edge technology and global challenges. The momentum of their work was building, and it was clear that the project had the potential to be a game-changer for humanity. Ethan's involvement wasn't just about the technical aspects anymore. His input was valued on a broader scale. His unique perspective as a young person who was seeing the future with an entirely different lens. It was clear to Musk and the team that Ethan's way of thinking wasn't just about solving problems. It was about approaching them in ways no one had thought of before. Every conversation, every brainstorming session, was an exercise in pushing boundaries, questioning norms, and breaking down the limitations others had accepted. But as the project took shape, there were also new challenges. As ideas evolved, the team encountered roadblocks, technological, political, and social, that needed to be addressed. For instance, not everyone in the world was ready to embrace the kind of forward-thinking solutions Ethan and the team were proposing. Musk, as always, had the courage to push forward, but even he could feel the weight of resistance in certain areas. One evening, after a long day in the lab, Ethan sat down with Musk in his office. They were surrounded by holographic blueprints and models of the energy systems and habitats they had been working on. Musk turned to Ethan, his usual determination evident, but there was an underlying sense of concern. "Ethan," Musk began, his tone serious, "we're at a crossroads. The technology is there, but now we have to get governments, corporations, and the general public on board. Some of these advancements will disrupt industries. People are afraid of change, and they often resist what they don't fully understand. How do we get them to see what we see?" Ethan took a moment, thinking carefully. He had already seen this in action, the way people clung to the status quo and resisted innovation. But he also knew that if they wanted to create a better future, they couldn't ignore the complexities of human behavior and societal structures. "We need to show people how these changes will benefit them," Ethan said, his voice confident. "We can't just throw a bunch of complex technology at them and expect them to jump on board. We need to make it personal. People need to see how these solutions can solve problems they face in their own lives. It's about making them feel like they have a stake in this future, that they're part of it." Musk nodded, impressed by Ethan's insight. "You're right. We can't just build the future. We have to make sure everyone is part of it. That's going to be the challenge, but I think you're the person who can help us get the message across." Ethan smiled. "I'm in, but we're going to need a strategy, something that makes people feel like they're not just watching this happen, but that they're driving it." In the weeks that followed, Ethan worked tirelessly alongside Musk's PR and marketing teams to develop a campaign that would communicate the benefits of the Earth-Mars Synergy project to the world. They created a series of presentations, videos, and interactive platforms that explained how the technologies they were developing would directly benefit people, how sustainable energy solutions could reduce utility costs, how the advancements in food production could solve global hunger, how the technologies for space exploration could create new job opportunities and industries here on Earth. The campaign was groundbreaking. It wasn't just a marketing effort, it was an educational movement. Ethan and his team worked with influencers, educators, and community leaders around the globe, engaging people at every level, from school children to CEOs. The idea was simple: show people that the future they were building wasn't just a vision of Mars or the stars. It was a future that could improve their lives here and now. Ethan also realized that their mission wasn't just about selling technology. It was about selling hope. It was about showing people that there was a way out of the current crises they faced, whether it was climate change, resource depletion, or economic disparity. Through this new technology, they had a chance to change things for the better. The mission was bigger than just Mars. It was about ensuring that Earth could thrive too. The campaign quickly gained traction, and the momentum grew. What had started as a series of technical advancements was now becoming a global movement. People across the world started to see how interconnected space exploration and Earth's sustainability could be. The breakthrough was in the way people began to view their place in the world and the future. But with success came new pressures. As more eyes were drawn to the project, new voices emerged, some in support, but others in opposition. Critics questioned the feasibility of the technology, arguing that the massive costs and resources required could be better spent on addressing immediate crises on Earth. Others worried that the focus on space exploration might take attention away from more traditional environmental efforts. For a moment, Ethan felt the weight of it all. The stakes were higher than ever, and the eyes of the world were on them. But Musk, ever the visionary, remained calm. "We can't let fear hold us back," Musk said one evening, after they had read through some of the criticism. "This is bigger than any one person's opinion. It's about our future, about humanity's future. We'll face challenges, but we'll keep pushing forward. The path to progress is never smooth, but that's how we know we're headed in the right direction." Ethan looked at Musk, a sense of determination growing inside him. He had always known that pushing boundaries would come with opposition. But now, more than ever, he understood that this was the moment to stand firm. "We're not just building technology. We're building a movement," Ethan replied, his voice steady. "And we can't let anyone take that away from us." Musk smiled. "Exactly." As the Earth-Mars Synergy project continued to unfold, the world began to take notice. Governments began to allocate funds for the initiative. Companies, eager to be part of the future, offered their support. The project was no longer just an idea. It was a reality, one that was beginning to reshape the world. And for Ethan, this was just the beginning. He had started as a 10-year-old boy with a mind that some said was smarter than Einstein's or Hawking's, but now, he was shaping a future that could change the course of humanity. The challenges were far from over, but for the first time, Ethan felt ready. Ready to take on whatever came next. After all, he knew that nothing great was ever achieved without a few obstacles along the way. And Ethan had learned how to face those obstacles head-on, just as he had with every challenge in his young life. The journey was only beginning, and he was ready to lead the way. Just as Ethan was starting to believe that everything was on track, reality hit hard. The global excitement surrounding the Earth-Mars Synergy project was palpable, but with it came a new set of challenges, ones that Ethan had never anticipated. One morning, a phone call shattered the illusion that things would be smooth sailing from here on out. Ethan was sitting at his desk, going over some technical specs with his team, when his phone buzzed. It was a call from Jacob, one of the lead engineers on the project. "Ethan," Jacob's voice was tense. "We've hit a major roadblock. The prototype for the energy system. We've encountered a serious flaw. It's not performing as we expected. There's a glitch in the energy conversion process, and it's making the system unstable." Ethan's heart sank. The energy system was the centerpiece of the entire project. If they couldn't get it to work, everything else would crumble with it. "What kind of glitch are we talking about?" Ethan asked, trying to keep his voice steady. "It's hard to say for certain right now. It might have to do with the material composition or the algorithm we're using for energy distribution. But whatever it is, it's preventing us from reaching the efficiency we need for both space and Earth-based use." Ethan felt a surge of panic, but quickly pushed it down. Panic wouldn't solve anything. "I'll be there in an hour. Let's figure this out." When Ethan arrived at the lab, he was met by Jacob and a team of engineers who were frantically analyzing the system's data. Ethan sat down at the workstation, his mind already working through the problem. "Okay," he said, after a brief scan of the data, "let's break this down. Start with the material composition and see if there's a discrepancy in the way it's interacting with the energy inputs. If we can isolate the issue, we might be able to rework the energy algorithm." For the next several hours, Ethan and the team pored over every detail of the prototype. They rechecked every parameter and recalculated the energy flow. Ethan's mind raced through potential solutions, but every attempt to correct the glitch seemed to lead to more complications. Finally, as the evening sun dipped below the horizon, Ethan sat back in his chair. The room was filled with the hum of computers and the soft clatter of keyboards, but Ethan felt like he was drowning in a sea of failure. He took a deep breath. What if the materials we're using aren't the problem? What if the issue is in how we're trying to harness the energy itself? Jacob looked up, his eyebrows furrowed in thought. "You mean, the way the energy is being stored and transferred?" Ethan nodded. "Exactly. What if we're not accounting for how energy behaves when it's subjected to both space and terrestrial conditions? We need to rethink the way we're managing the transition between different environments." Jacob's eyes lit up. "That's it. We've been treating the problem as if space and Earth are separate entities when, in reality, they're part of the same energy ecosystem. We need to design a more fluid system that adapts to both." It was a breakthrough. Finally, they had a new direction to explore. Ethan spent the next few days working with the team on refining the new approach. They adjusted the energy management protocols and integrated new algorithms to stabilize the system under both the intense solar radiation of space and the atmospheric conditions on Earth. It was a monumental task, but slowly, they began to see results. Days turned into weeks, and with each passing day, the prototype improved. The glitch that had seemed insurmountable now appeared to be nothing more than a bump in the road. Ethan found himself sitting at the table with the team, reviewing the final version of the energy system. "We've done it," Jacob said, his voice filled with awe. "It's stable. It works." Ethan exhaled, feeling the weight of the past weeks lift off his shoulders. The energy system was ready to move to the next stage. The Earth-Mars Synergy project was back on track. However, while the technical side of things was progressing, there was still the looming challenge of public perception. The earlier success of the project had generated a great deal of interest, but as with any ambitious project of this scale, doubts remained. The recent setback had given the critics new ammunition. One morning, Ethan sat with Musk in the command center, going through the latest media reports. There were articles, videos, and social media posts, some praising the project, others questioning its viability. The questions were becoming more pointed, more critical. People are starting to wonder if we can really pull this off, Ethan said, his voice tinged with concern. There's a lot of pressure building. What if the prototype still doesn't work? Musk leaned back in his chair, a calm expression on his face. This is the price of progress, Ethan. Every great endeavor has its critics. The question isn't whether we'll face setbacks. It's whether we can keep pushing through them. Ethan nodded, understanding what Musk was saying. The path to innovation was never linear, and the real test wasn't in the initial success, but in how they dealt with failure. Do you ever doubt yourself? Ethan asked, his voice soft. Musk looked at him for a long moment before answering. Of course I do. Doubt is part of the process, but it's not the doubt that matters. It's what you do with it. You either let it hold you back, or you use it to fuel your next step forward. The next few weeks were a blur of activity. Ethan and the team continued to refine the energy system while also working to address the growing skepticism surrounding the project. They gave presentations, held press conferences, and answered questions, some from supporters, others from vocal critics. But through it all, Ethan learned an invaluable lesson from Musk: how to embrace the uncertainty, how to not be afraid of the challenges, but to face them head-on and keep moving forward. The setbacks, the criticism, they were just part of the journey. And if there was one thing Ethan had learned over the past year, it was that the journey was far from over. It was just beginning. The Earth-Mars Synergy project wasn't just about creating new technology. It was about redefining what humanity could accomplish when it came together and pushed past its fears. And that, more than anything, was the most important thing of all. Ethan had already proven that he was capable of facing the toughest challenges. And now, as the project gained momentum once more, he knew there were still many obstacles ahead. But with the team by his side and Musk's guidance, he felt ready to tackle whatever came next. The world was watching, but more importantly, they were waiting for the change that Ethan and the project would bring. As Ethan's team continued to make headway on the Earth-Mars Synergy project, the world around them started to react. The media was abuzz with reports, some positive, some negative, about the ambitious undertaking. Elon Musk had long been a lightning rod for public opinion, and now, with Ethan in the spotlight, the project was drawing even more attention. Ethan, who had once been content to remain a quiet genius working in the shadows, found himself thrust into the limelight. Interviews, debates, and panels were now a regular part of his life. People wanted to know how a 10-year-old with an IQ of 162 had become the face of such an ambitious global initiative. At first, the attention was overwhelming. Ethan was used to solving problems on his own, but now, everything was under public scrutiny. His every word, every move, was analyzed by reporters, pundits, and critics. Even his age became a point of contention. Some praised him for his intelligence and insight, while others dismissed him as a child prodigy playing in a grown-up world. Despite the chaos, Musk was a steadying presence. He knew the pressures of being in the public eye, and he worked closely with Ethan to help him navigate the complex media landscape. "Don't let them make you feel like you have to prove something, Ethan," Musk told him one day after a particularly grueling round of interviews. "You're here because you have something unique to offer. Just keep doing what you do best, think differently, and stay true to your vision." But even with Musk's encouragement, Ethan couldn't help but feel the weight of expectations. The success of the project now felt like it rested squarely on his shoulders. Every time they hit a new milestone, the pressure to move faster, to go further, mounted. Everyone wanted answers, solutions, results. It wasn't just the media and critics who were keeping Ethan on his toes. World leaders, corporations, and activists were all looking to the project for hope. At a time when climate change, resource depletion, and political instability were at their peak, the Earth-Mars Synergy project had become a symbol of what could be a future where innovation and cooperation overcame adversity. The pressure to live up to that hope was unrelenting. Then, one fateful day, a major breakthrough arrived. Ethan was sitting with the engineering team when a message flashed across his terminal. It was from the testing department. "We've done it," it read simply. The energy system has exceeded expectations. Ethan's heart skipped a beat. It had been months since the team had first discovered the glitch in the system. Since then, they had worked tirelessly to refine their approach, testing, recalculating, and redesigning the energy management system. Now, it seemed their efforts had paid off. He immediately called a meeting with Musk. When the two of them sat down in Musk's office, surrounded by models of the Mars colonization plans and energy systems, Ethan spoke with uncontainable excitement. "We did it, Elon. The system is stable now. It's more efficient than we thought possible. We've cracked it." Musk leaned forward, a rare moment of vulnerability in his usual confident demeanor. "You're telling me the energy system can now generate the power we need for Earth and Mars?" "Yes," Ethan said, his voice filled with certainty. "We can produce enough energy to power Mars colonies and, more importantly, provide sustainable energy to Earth. It's not just a prototype anymore. This is real. This is the future." Musk let out a breath, the weight of the moment hitting him fully. "This is huge, Ethan. This is the breakthrough we've been waiting for. We can finally move forward." The world's reaction to this news was nothing short of explosive. Headlines blared with excitement. 10-year-old boy's energy system breakthrough could save the planet. Elon Musk's vision of Mars colonization inches closer to reality. Experts were brought in to validate Ethan's work, and almost universally, they were impressed. The system wasn't just efficient, it was revolutionary. The ability to transfer and harness energy on a planetary scale was a game-changer for space exploration and global sustainability. For Ethan, the validation felt surreal. All his hard work, the sleepless nights, the overwhelming pressure. It had all led to this moment. But just as he felt the triumph, something unexpected happened. The backlash came swiftly, and it was harsh. Environmental groups and some political figures who had initially supported the project began to voice concerns. The fear that the project's rapid technological advancements would outpace regulation and lead to unforeseen consequences gained traction. Questions were raised about the potential environmental impact of the Mars colonization plans and whether humanity could responsibly handle the new technologies they were developing. "Do we have the ethical responsibility to move forward so fast?" one prominent environmentalist questioned on a live news program. The Earth-Mars Synergy project promises to solve some problems, but it could also create new ones. Are we trading one crisis for another? Ethan watched, with a sense of unease, as his work was scrutinized and criticized. While many were celebrating the breakthrough, others were warning of the risks involved. As a young mind with a vision for the future, he had never considered the ethical and political ramifications of his work on such a global scale. His goal had always been clear: to help solve the biggest challenges facing humanity. But now, he realized that progress often came with unintended consequences. Ethan spent sleepless nights pondering the concerns being raised. It was clear to him that the path to a better future couldn't be paved by technology alone. They needed to find a way to ensure that their advancements wouldn't just be powerful but responsible. In a world so divided, how could they ensure that their work benefited everyone and not just the select few? The next day, Ethan approached Musk with his concerns. "Elon," he said, sitting down beside him in the lab, "what if we're moving too fast? What if we haven't thought this through enough? Maybe we need to take a step back and involve more voices in the conversation. Experts, activists, even ordinary people. We have to make sure we're creating a future that's inclusive, not just technologically advanced." Musk listened carefully, his gaze steady. "You're right, Ethan. The future is about collaboration, not just innovation. But sometimes, in the pursuit of progress, we have to take risks. The trick is to take those risks responsibly." Ethan looked down, his mind racing. He had always been the one to focus on solutions, but now he realized that the challenge was bigger than any single invention. It was about creating a future that was sustainable, equitable, and just. And to do that, the conversation had to involve everyone. Ethan and Musk quickly reached out to a diverse range of experts, from environmentalists to sociologists, from political leaders to grassroots activists. The goal was to open up a dialogue, not just about the technology, but about how to ensure it could be used for the greater good. The conversations were intense, often heated, but they were necessary. As the debate unfolded, Ethan came to realize that innovation wasn't just about creating new things. It was about ensuring that those innovations were used in ways that benefited all of humanity. It was a hard lesson, but it was one that would define the path forward for the Earth-Mars Synergy project. The world was watching, waiting for answers. But Ethan had learned something critical. The real question wasn't just about whether the technology would work. It was about how humanity would handle the power it held in its hands. The journey ahead was unclear, but Ethan knew one thing for sure. They weren't just building a new world. They were shaping the future of humanity itself. The whirlwind of media coverage and public reaction surrounding the Earth-Mars Synergy project showed no signs of slowing down. Each day, the pressure mounted as Ethan, Elon Musk, and the entire team found themselves in the eye of a storm of public scrutiny, both from those eager for change and those wary of its potential consequences. But despite the external chaos, Ethan remained focused on the question that had haunted him since their breakthrough. How could they ensure that their technological advancements would benefit everyone, not just a select few? As more voices from all over the world were brought into the discussion, environmentalists, sociologists, ethicists, political leaders, and even ordinary citizens, the scope of the conversation became broader and more complex. The project had always been about creating a new future for humanity, but now it was clear that the true challenge wasn't just building the technology. It was ensuring that it was used in a way that upheld the values of equity, responsibility, and sustainability. Ethan spent long hours reviewing feedback, studying various perspectives, and trying to understand the underlying concerns that people had about the project. He realized that while technology was a powerful tool, it was only as good as the intentions behind it. It wasn't just about solving problems. It was about solving them in a way that didn't create new ones. One evening, as the sun set over the horizon, Ethan sat at a small table in the lab, his laptop open in front of him, displaying an article on ethical dilemmas in space exploration. Musk walked in, holding a coffee cup in one hand. "You look deep in thought," Musk remarked, setting the cup down on the table. "I've been thinking a lot about the bigger picture," Ethan said, his voice thoughtful. "People are scared, and I understand why. If we get this wrong, the consequences could be disastrous. We need to make sure we don't just create a solution. We need to create a responsible solution." Musk raised an eyebrow. "You sound like you're about to launch a new philosophy. What's on your mind?" Ethan smiled faintly. "Maybe I am. I think we need to be more transparent. We can't just present the technology and say, here's the answer. We need to explain the why and the how, why we're doing this and how we'll ensure that it's used for good." Musk paused, processing Ethan's words. "I agree, but you know better than anyone, people will always have questions. It's not just about technology, it's about how people perceive it, and that perception is often shaped by fear." Ethan nodded. "Exactly, and fear often comes from not understanding. So maybe it's not enough to just prove the technology works. Maybe we need to prove that we're thinking about the long-term consequences too." Musk smiled. "You're wise beyond your years, kid. And that's exactly why I'm glad you're on this project. We'll make sure the world understands the bigger picture. But remember, change is always met with resistance. It's how we handle that resistance that matters." The following weeks were filled with discussions, debates, and new strategies to address the concerns surrounding the Earth-Mars Synergy project. Ethan and Musk worked tirelessly to incorporate public feedback into the project's development. They engaged in numerous panels, working closely with ethical experts and community leaders to refine the project's impact. The team also expanded their outreach, organizing public forums to answer questions directly from the public. It was clear that they were moving in the right direction, but the process was slow, and not everyone was convinced. One particularly heated debate took place on a global livestream that attracted millions of viewers. The debate, hosted by a major international network, featured a panel of experts from various fields: space exploration, environmentalism, political theory, and economics. Musk and Ethan represented the Earth-Mars Synergy project, while the opposing side, led by Dr. Maya Davis, an environmental activist, argued that the rapid push for space colonization and technological development could worsen the very crises they were trying to solve. The debate was intense, with Dr. Davis challenging Musk and Ethan on their priorities. "You're trying to build a new world, But you haven't even solved the problems we're facing on Earth, she argued, her voice sharp. How can you justify pouring billions of dollars into space colonization when millions of people are struggling with poverty, inequality, and climate change right here on this planet? Ethan, who had been sitting quietly at the table, his hands folded in front of him, was now ready to speak. He had heard these arguments before, and while he understood the concern, he felt it was time to share his perspective. I understand the concerns, Ethan began, his voice calm but firm. But we're not choosing between Earth and Mars. We're not abandoning one for the other. What we're trying to do is create solutions that work for both. Energy systems that can sustain life on Earth can also be used on Mars. In fact, the technology we develop for space colonization will have ripple effects here on Earth, helping solve problems like energy access, sustainability, and climate change. Dr. Davis scoffed. But at what cost? We're already seeing the consequences of unchecked technological growth, rising inequality, environmental degradation, and social unrest. How can we trust you with the future of humanity when you haven't even fully addressed the issues we face today? Ethan took a deep breath, gathering his thoughts. I can't deny that the world faces serious challenges, but I believe that innovation, when used responsibly, can be part of the solution. We have to think beyond just the present. We have to think about the future, for all of us. And that means we need to ensure that the benefits of our work are shared by everyone, not just a select few. The room fell silent for a moment. Musk nodded in approval, but Dr. Davis didn't back down. That's a nice sentiment, Ethan. But good intentions don't always lead to good outcomes, she said, her voice tinged with skepticism. Ethan met her gaze, unwavering. Maybe not, but I'm willing to try. And I believe that if we work together, if we involve everyone in this conversation, we can create a future where technology serves humanity, not the other way around. As the debate continued, the conversation around the Earth-Mars Synergy project shifted. More people began to see the potential for the technology to solve global issues, but they also recognized the need for safeguards, regulations, and careful planning. It was clear that the project wasn't just about technology. It was about shaping a new model for how humanity approached progress. For Ethan, the debate had been a turning point. It wasn't enough to simply create the technology. He now understood that the real challenge was ensuring it was used in a way that aligned with the values of fairness, equity, and responsibility. And as the weeks turned into months, Ethan realized that this was just the beginning. The true test of the Earth-Mars Synergy project would not come from the technical hurdles they faced. It would come from how they navigated the ethical and societal challenges that came with it. In the end, Ethan knew that they had to build more than just a new world on Mars. They had to build a new kind of world, a world where progress and responsibility went hand in hand. And that world, he believed, was worth fighting for. Months passed, and the Earth-Mars Synergy project began to take on a life of its own. The groundbreaking technology Ethan and his team had developed was moving closer to becoming a reality, but the challenges facing the initiative were far from over. While the technological side of the project had garnered overwhelming support, the ethical debates and political negotiations surrounding it were growing increasingly complicated. Ethan's role in these discussions had shifted from being a child prodigy with the answers to a thought leader striving to balance ambition with responsibility. The media loved him, but there was also growing skepticism. People were beginning to ask, could a young genius really understand the full weight of the global implications of his work? Was it right to place such monumental decisions in the hands of someone so young? As these questions swirled around him, Ethan found himself feeling more isolated. His team was focused on the technical challenges, but it was becoming clear that no amount of innovation could shield them from the political and social turmoil they were facing. International leaders, corporate interests, environmental organizations, and social movements all had their own agendas, and each group wanted something different from the project. The first major test came when a World Summit was convened in Geneva to discuss the future of space exploration and the Earth-Mars Synergy project. Leaders from every continent would be in attendance, and the stakes could not have been higher. The question of whether humanity could responsibly colonize Mars, and whether it was worth the investment, hung in the balance. Ethan and Musk arrived at the summit together, their minds buzzing with thoughts of what lay ahead. Ethan had never been to a political event of this scale, And though he was used to pressure, he couldn't shake the feeling that this meeting could make or break the entire project. The summit hall was filled with dignitaries, scientists, and activists, each one eager to present their case. As Ethan and Musk took their seats at the front, they were met with a mixture of admiration and suspicion. Some attendees saw them as visionaries. Others saw them as arrogant dreamers, rushing into the unknown without fully understanding the consequences. The first speaker was the President of the United States, who gave a passionate speech about the importance of space exploration and the need for international cooperation. He praised the Earth-Mars Synergy project as an unprecedented leap forward for humanity, promising that it would not only benefit space colonization but also offer solutions to Earth's most pressing problems, such as energy shortages and climate change. But just as the president finished speaking, an unexpected voice interrupted. It was Dr. Maya Davis, the environmental activist who had fiercely debated Ethan months earlier. "You talk about solutions, but where are the solutions for the people already suffering here on Earth?" Dr. Davis asked, her voice cutting through the room. "How can we justify sending resources to Mars when our own planet is on the brink? You want to colonize space, but what about the people in the streets, the communities ravaged by climate change and inequality?" The room fell silent as Dr. Davis's words hung in the air. Ethan could feel the weight of her criticism, but he also knew that it was an important question to answer. Musk turned to him, giving him an encouraging nod. Ethan stood up, adjusting his glasses as he faced the crowd. "I understand the concern," he began, his voice steady but determined. "I understand the pain and frustration that many people feel. But the goal of the Earth-Mars Synergy project isn't just to escape Earth's problems. It's to create solutions that benefit everyone. The technologies we are developing, like sustainable energy systems and resource management tools, are not just for Mars, they are designed to address problems on Earth too. We're not abandoning our planet. We're finding ways to ensure its survival while also opening new frontiers for humanity." He paused, looking around the room to gauge the reaction. "But we need to be careful. We must make sure that the benefits of these technologies are shared by everyone, not just a few. The Earth-Mars Synergy project isn't just about technology. It's about creating a better world for all people, regardless of where they live." Dr. Davis raised an eyebrow but said nothing. The room seemed to hold its breath, waiting for the next voice to speak. After a long moment of tension, the president nodded, signaling the next speaker to take the floor. The conversation that followed was heated, with many voices debating the ethical implications of the project. Some argued that the money and resources devoted to space exploration could be better spent solving Earth's immediate problems. Others argued that technological advancement could lead to global improvements, even if the project itself was an ambitious and risky undertaking. As the summit continued, Ethan's understanding of the political landscape deepened. This wasn't just about innovation. It was about navigating a complex web of interests, values, and fears. Every decision, every move they made, would have far-reaching consequences. The project was no longer just a scientific endeavor. It had become a battleground for the future of humanity. One evening, after a particularly exhausting day of debates, Ethan found himself alone in the hotel room, staring out the window at the lights of Geneva below. His mind was racing. The pressure was immense, and for the first time, he wondered if he had been naive to think that a solution could be so simple. As the weight of the world seemed to press down on him, he heard a knock on the door. It was Musk. "Mind if I come in?" Musk asked, his face serious but kind. "Of course," Ethan replied, stepping aside to let him in. Musk sat down beside him. "I can see that this is getting to you," he said, his tone soft. "I know it's a lot to handle, but you're doing something that no one else has ever done. There will always be people who doubt and question. There will always be resistance. But that's how progress works." Ethan looked down at his hands. "What if we're not ready for this? What if we're not thinking of everything? What if we're rushing into something we don't fully understand?" Musk placed a hand on his shoulder. "You're thinking about it, Ethan. You're asking the hard questions. That's what makes you different. We're not just building a future for ourselves. We're building it for everyone. And you're the one leading the way, even if you don't always have all the answers. You're doing it because you believe in the future. And that's the most important thing." Ethan nodded slowly, still uncertain, but grateful for Musk's reassurance. I guess that's what I'm afraid of. I want to make sure we're not doing this just for us. I want to make sure we're doing it for everyone. Musk smiled. That's exactly why you're the right person for this. And that's why, together, we'll make sure this is done right. One step at a time. The summit ended with no clear resolution, but the conversation had shifted. People were starting to see the complexity of the situation, and the project now had the ear of the global community in a way it never had before. The debates would continue, but Ethan knew that this was just the beginning. The journey ahead would be long and filled with uncertainty, but he was more determined than ever to prove that innovation and responsibility could go hand in hand. The weight of the world rested on their shoulders, but for the first time, Ethan felt ready to carry it. The true test wasn't just about what they could build, it was about what they could create together. And that, he realized, was a challenge worth facing. As the political debates and global discussions continued, the momentum behind the Earth-Mars Synergy project began to shift in ways that Ethan had not expected. Though the project was still facing significant opposition from certain factions, there was a growing undercurrent of support. Leaders, innovators, and ordinary people who were previously skeptical were starting to understand that the stakes were much higher than they had imagined. It wasn't just about colonizing Mars. It was about the survival of humanity itself. Despite this growing support, the project was still far from reality. Funding was a constant battle. Many governments were reluctant to invest large sums of money into an untested venture when there were so many urgent issues on Earth. And though private companies, including Musk's SpaceX, were on board, the funding gap remained a major obstacle. The solution, Ethan believed, lay in rallying the world to see the bigger picture, one that encompassed not just technological innovation but a new era of global cooperation. They had to show the world that the future was worth investing in. It was an early morning when the call came in. Ethan was just waking up when his phone buzzed on the nightstand. It was from Musk, and the urgency in the message caught his attention immediately. "Ethan, we need to meet. The next phase of the project is about to begin, but we have a new obstacle, one we didn't anticipate. Get to the lab ASAP." Ethan's heart raced as he quickly dressed and made his way to the lab. As he arrived, he found Musk pacing back and forth in front of a large screen, showing the latest updates on the project's funding. "What's going on?" Ethan asked, his voice still groggy from sleep but filled with concern. Musk motioned for Ethan to sit. "It's worse than I thought. We've been hit with a series of challenges. The European Union just passed new regulations that will make it harder for us to get the resources we need to complete the project. And some of the leading investors are backing out, citing global instability as a reason not to take risks right now. On top of that, there's a new movement. People are questioning whether the project should even go forward." Ethan frowned, feeling the weight of the situation pressing down on him. He knew this was coming. He had always known that such monumental change would never be easy. But the idea of the project stalling now, when it had so much potential, was a blow he hadn't fully anticipated. "What do we do now?" Ethan asked, his voice steady, but his mind already running through possible solutions. Musk sat down next to him. "We're going to have to take matters into our own hands. We need to rally the people, not just the governments or investors, but the citizens of the world. We need to remind them what's at stake. We need to show them that the Earth-Mars Synergy project isn't just about escaping our problems. It's about solving them." Ethan nodded slowly, understanding. "You want to turn this into a global movement." "Exactly," Musk said. "We need to create a sense of urgency. Make people realize that the future is not something we can take for granted. We can't just sit back and wait for the perfect conditions to build the future we want. We have to go out there and make it happen." The next few weeks were a whirlwind of activity. Ethan and Musk, alongside their team, began working tirelessly on a new strategy to rally support for the Earth-Mars Synergy project. They launched a global awareness campaign, using social media, online platforms, and public speaking engagements to reach people all over the world. The campaign's message was simple but powerful. The future of humanity is now. We are the ones who must shape it. The response was immediate and overwhelming. The hashtag Build the Future trended worldwide, and millions of people, young and old, began to engage with the message. Videos, articles, and interviews flooded the internet, all emphasizing the importance of taking bold action now to ensure a better tomorrow. For the first time, the project wasn't just a discussion among elites and politicians. It became a conversation that was happening in living rooms, classrooms, and offices around the globe. One of the most powerful moments came when Ethan delivered a live-streamed speech to an audience of millions. Sitting in front of a simple desk with a map of Earth and Mars in the background, Ethan spoke with the same quiet determination that had always defined him. "We are standing on the precipice of something extraordinary," he began, his voice calm yet charged with passion. "For too long, we've been content to rely on old systems that are failing us. Our world is changing, and it's up to us to decide how we respond. We can't wait for someone else to fix it. It's up to us." The Earth-Mars Synergy Project isn't just about going to Mars. It's about ensuring a future where humanity survives and thrives, not just on Earth, but across the stars. But we need your help. We need every voice, every hand, to build this future together. The response was nothing short of incredible. Within hours, the hashtag #BuildTheFuture campaign had reached over 100 million people, and the calls for action were pouring in from all corners of the globe. People were signing petitions, writing letters to their government leaders, and organizing rallies to demand that the project move forward. But with the growing public support came an increasing sense of pressure. The world was watching, and the eyes of every nation were fixed on the project. The stakes had never been higher, and with so many powerful interests involved, the path ahead would be anything but straightforward. Ethan found himself thrust into the role of an ambassador for the future. He traveled the world, speaking at conferences, meeting with world leaders, and sitting down with scientists, activists, and everyday citizens to discuss the potential of the Earth-Mars Synergy Project. He learned quickly that there were no easy answers, no simple solutions. People were frightened of the unknown, frightened of what change might bring. But Ethan also saw something else: hope. As he spoke to people around the world, he realized that many of them saw the project not just as an opportunity for technological advancement, but as a chance for a fresh start, a chance to do things differently, to build a better future for their children and grandchildren. It was at a rally in Johannesburg that Ethan truly felt the power of this movement. The stadium was filled to capacity, with thousands of people chanting the words, "Build the future." As he stepped onto the stage, his heart raced, but he knew that this was the moment. This was the moment they had all been waiting for. The moment when the world would come together and demand the future they deserved. Standing at the podium, looking out over the crowd, Ethan spoke with more passion than he ever had before. "This isn't just about technology. This isn't just about going to Mars. This is about the future of all of us," he said. "We are the ones who will decide what happens next. We can choose to be afraid, or we can choose to act. We can choose to let fear hold us back, or we can choose to build a future that's brighter than anything we've ever known. The time for action is now, and together, we will build that future." The roar of the crowd was deafening. Ethan felt the power of their energy, their belief, and he knew this was just the beginning. The call to action had been answered. The world was ready to move forward, and with it, the Earth-Mars Synergy Project had found a new sense of purpose. The momentum that had surged behind the Earth-Mars Synergy Project after the rally in Johannesburg did not slow down. If anything, it grew stronger. Media outlets around the world continued to amplify Ethan's message, and his impassioned speeches resonated with people of all ages and backgrounds. The hashtag #BuildTheFuture became a symbol of hope for the future of humanity, a call to action that had transcended borders and ideologies. But as the movement gathered steam, new challenges emerged, and with them, new risks. The political and economic elites who had once been hesitant were now finding themselves under increasing pressure. For every supporter that rose to defend the project, there were just as many detractors waiting to capitalize on any misstep. Ethan and Musk, however, remained focused on their shared vision. They knew that they were at a critical juncture. The Earth-Mars Synergy Project could no longer be just an idea, it had to become a reality. But that meant navigating the tricky waters of public opinion, securing more funding, and, above all, convincing the world that humanity was truly ready to take the next giant leap. The pivotal moment arrived when the United Nations held a special session on the future of space exploration. It was an event that had been a long time coming, and it would determine the path forward for the project. For Ethan, this was the culmination of everything he had worked for. The chance to present his case before the world's most influential leaders and convince them to invest in the future. The session took place in a massive hall, with representatives from every country in attendance. Cameras flashed, and the buzz of anticipation filled the air as the delegates took their seats. Ethan, along with Musk, stood at the front of the room, awaiting their turn to speak. It was a surreal moment for Ethan. Just a year ago, he had been a child with an idea, and now he was standing before the most powerful people in the world, all of them looking to him for answers. He adjusted his glasses, feeling the weight of the responsibility pressing down on him. But he had no time to second-guess himself. This was what he had prepared for. Musk stood beside him, his usual confidence tempered by the gravity of the situation. "Are you ready?" Musk asked quietly. Ethan nodded. "I am. Let's do this." When the time came, the room fell into complete silence as the two of them approached the podium. Ethan took a deep breath and looked out over the sea of faces. The room was filled with political leaders, scientists, and influencers. The stakes could not have been higher. "Distinguished delegates," Ethan began, his voice steady and calm. "We are standing at a crossroads. The decisions we make today will define the future of our species. The Earth-Mars Synergy Project is not just about sending humans to Mars. It is about creating the foundation for a new era of human progress. It's about ensuring the survival of humanity, advancing science, and solving some of the most pressing challenges we face here on Earth." He paused, allowing his words to sink in. The weight of what he was saying hung in the air, and for a moment, the entire room seemed to hold its breath. Earth is facing unprecedented challenges: climate change, resource depletion, and inequality, to name just a few. The future is uncertain, and we cannot wait for the perfect circumstances to arise before we act. We must take bold, responsible steps now, because if we wait, the consequences will be irreversible. Ethan's voice grew more impassioned as he continued. The Earth-Mars Synergy Project is not an escape plan. It is a lifeline. The technologies we are developing are not just for Mars. They are for Earth. They are for the next generation, for our children and grandchildren, and for all those who will inherit the Earth and the stars. As he spoke, Ethan couldn't help but notice the mix of reactions in the room. Some were nodding, others were scribbling notes, but there were also skeptical faces. He knew that the true challenge was not just making them understand the potential of the project, it was convincing them that humanity could rise to the occasion. Ethan took a step back and gestured to the image on the screen behind him, a stunning visualization of Mars, with humanity's first settlement thriving on its surface. "This is the future we can create," he said. "This is the opportunity we have to unite humanity in a way we never have before." The Earth-Mars Synergy Project will not just advance space exploration. It will create jobs, spark innovation, and provide solutions to the crises we face today. It is a bold vision, yes, but it is a vision grounded in hope, science, and a relentless drive to ensure that humanity's best days are still ahead of us. The room was silent for a moment, and then, as if on cue, the first round of applause erupted. It wasn't overwhelming, but it was enough to signal that Ethan's words had made an impact. Musk turned to him, a rare look of pride on his face. Ethan had done it. The world was listening. After the speech, the discussions continued for hours. Some leaders spoke in favor of the project, emphasizing its potential to unite nations and provide solutions to global challenges. Others remained hesitant, citing concerns about the environmental impact, the potential risks, and the ethical considerations of such a large-scale initiative. But the momentum had shifted. There was no longer an atmosphere of doubt and opposition. There was a recognition that the Earth-Mars Synergy Project was not just an idea, but an imperative. As the session came to a close, the UN representatives voted to officially endorse the project. It wasn't an immediate approval for funding, but it was a significant step forward. For the first time, the world's leaders had come together to acknowledge the importance of the initiative and to begin formal discussions on how to proceed. That night, as Ethan and Musk sat in the quiet of their hotel room, the enormity of what had just happened began to sink in. Ethan had expected this moment to feel like a victory, but instead, It felt like the beginning of something much larger. The real work was just beginning. We've come a long way, but there's still so much to do, Musk said, leaning back in his chair. This is just the first step. Ethan nodded, staring out the window at the city lights below. We've won the support of the leaders. Now, we need to win the hearts and minds of the people. Exactly, Musk said. And we'll do that by showing them what's possible. By proving that we can make the future better, not just for a few, but for everyone. Ethan felt the weight of the challenge, but he also felt something else, a deep sense of purpose. The journey ahead would be filled with obstacles, but for the first time, he felt ready to face them. The tipping point had been reached. The Earth-Mars Synergy Project was no longer just an idea. It was a movement, and with the support of the world behind them, Ethan and Musk were determined to see it through. The future was within reach, and they were the ones who would build it. The endorsement from the United Nations had given the Earth-Mars Synergy Project a shot of adrenaline, but the true test was only just beginning. The support had been significant, yes, but the world was still divided. Governments still needed to secure funding, major corporations had their own interests to protect, and the general public was split. Some saw the potential for a brighter future, while others feared the unknown. Skepticism lingered like a cloud over the project. Despite this, Ethan remained resolute. He had spent so much time trying to convince the world that humanity's future was at stake, but now he realized the task at hand was even bigger. He had to convince the people who held the keys to the future, the skeptics, the funders, the naysayers, that this was their chance to secure not just Mars, but the future of Earth itself. The next few weeks were filled with a whirlwind of meetings and strategy sessions. Ethan and Musk knew that the Earth-Mars Synergy Project could not move forward without the critical support of both public and private sectors. The challenge was finding a way to bridge the gap between the idealists who believed in the project's potential and the pragmatists who couldn't see past the immediate risks. The meetings with world leaders were tense. While many agreed that the project was important, convincing them to release the necessary resources was another story. Some nations were more concerned about their own internal issues, climate change, poverty, unemployment, than about funding a futuristic space project that seemed too far away to affect their immediate concerns. Look, Ethan, we understand your vision. But right now, we have people here suffering from resource scarcity and rising sea levels, one European leader said, his voice weary. How can we justify sending money to space when we have so many urgent problems here on Earth? It was a valid question, and one that Ethan had been prepared to answer. The future of humanity was an all-encompassing vision, an intersection of technology, sustainability, and the survival of the species. Space exploration, he argued, would yield breakthroughs in everything from energy efficiency to climate control. The technologies we develop on this journey will have a direct impact on the challenges we face on Earth, Ethan countered. The solutions we find on Mars could be the key to solving problems we can't even begin to solve right now. But despite his best efforts, the cold, hard facts were undeniable. Space exploration was still seen by many as a luxury, and the government funds allocated to it seemed less pressing than those needed to combat Earth's immediate crises. In the midst of these political struggles, Ethan received an unexpected invitation. A major tech conference was being held in Silicon Valley, and Elon Musk had arranged for a special panel on the future of space exploration. This was a unique opportunity to speak directly to the leaders of the tech world, the investors and innovators who had the resources and vision to drive the project forward. It was a chance for Ethan to put everything he had learned into practice and make the case for why the Earth-Mars Synergy Project was worth their time and investment. Elon and Ethan arrived at the conference, where the air was buzzing with anticipation. The stage was set for what would be an important moment in the history of the project. The panel was packed with some of the most influential names in the tech world, venture capitalists, AI experts, and space pioneers, including SpaceX executives and leaders from NASA. Ethan took a deep breath before stepping onto the stage. He was ready. This time, the pitch was different. It wasn't just about saving humanity anymore. Now, it was about proving that the future of space exploration wasn't just a dream. It was an economic revolution. As the moderator introduced the panel, Ethan's mind raced with anticipation. The audience was made up of the kind of people who could turn an idea into reality, people who didn't just dream of the future, they built it. And Ethan knew that if he could convince them, the tides would turn. The first few speakers talked about technological advances, AI, quantum computing, and advancements in clean energy. But when it was Ethan's turn, he stood up with the same quiet confidence that had become his trademark. The Earth-Mars Synergy Project is not just about space, he began. It's about the economic future of our planet. The technologies that we're developing for Mars are already beginning to show promise here on Earth. Think of this project as an investment in the future. By building the infrastructure for Mars, we're creating new industries, creating jobs, and unlocking innovation that will change the way we live on Earth. He paused to let his words resonate, watching the faces in the crowd as they listened intently. This was the key, showing them that this was not just about sending rockets to Mars. This was about creating a whole new economy, one built on the foundation of sustainability, space technology, and bold vision. Imagine the new industries we will create. Imagine the new markets, the clean energy solutions, the life support systems, the breakthroughs in artificial intelligence and materials science. All of these innovations are the building blocks of tomorrow, and they're happening now. Ethan's words seemed to strike a chord with the audience. There was a noticeable shift in energy as people began to see the economic potential of the project. The movement was no longer just a noble cause. It was a smart investment. The Earth-Mars Synergy Project wasn't just about taking humanity to the stars. It was about reshaping the economy of the future. The panel ended with a surge of optimism. Investors were already lining up to talk to Elon and Ethan about how they could get involved in the project. One prominent venture capitalist, known for his interest in futuristic technologies, even stood up to offer his support. "I'm in," he said with a grin. "This is the kind of venture that will change everything." It was a turning point for the Earth-Mars Synergy Project. Suddenly, the narrative had shifted from one of uncertainty to one of possibility. For the first time, the world's tech and business leaders were beginning to see that the future wasn't just a nebulous idea. It was something they could build, something they could profit from. And that shift would be the key to unlocking the full potential of the project. As Ethan and Musk left the conference, the air felt different. It wasn't just the typical Silicon Valley buzz. It was the sense that something big was finally starting to happen. The pieces were falling into place. "We did it," Musk said, his voice filled with a rare note of satisfaction. "This is the breakthrough we've been waiting for." Ethan nodded, a small smile tugging at the corner of his lips. "It's just the beginning, Elon. Now we need to take that momentum and turn it into action." It was a heady thought. The road ahead was still long, and there would be plenty of obstacles to overcome. But for the first time, Ethan felt like they were on the cusp of something huge. And this time, the tides were turning in their favor. The Earth-Mars Synergy Project was no longer just an idea. It was becoming a movement that would change the course of human history. The momentum that had started to build at the Silicon Valley conference continued to surge forward. After the panel, Ethan and Musk found themselves swarmed by investors, entrepreneurs, and influencers eager to be part of the Earth-Mars Synergy Project. Each conversation they had was more promising than the last, and the energy in the room felt electrifying. The narrative had shifted. Space exploration was no longer a luxury, it was the future, and people were ready to invest in it. But as the excitement grew, so did the challenges. With every new wave of support came new questions, new risks, and new challenges to overcome. Ethan knew that they were only scratching the surface. The support from the tech world was just the beginning, and now it was time to ensure that the groundwork was laid for a truly global endeavor. The first step was to bring together a team, a coalition of countries, corporations, and organizations that could provide the necessary funding and resources for the project to take off. As the Earth-Mars Synergy Project gained more traction, the world began to take notice. Political leaders who had previously been skeptical were now warming to the idea. While there were still those who questioned the risks, others recognized that this project could unite nations in ways that had never been done before. Ethan, alongside Musk, organized a series of high-level meetings with heads of state, diplomats, and leaders from every corner of the globe. The message was clear. This was not just about one country reaching for the stars. It was about humanity coming together as a collective force to secure its future on both Earth and Mars. As they sat around the table in the first of these meetings, Ethan was acutely aware of the significance of the moment. The leaders of China, Russia, Europe, and the United States, along with representatives from smaller but powerful nations, were all in the room. The room was filled with power, history, and possibility. "We're at the precipice of something unprecedented," Musk said as he addressed the gathering. "What we do here will define the next 100 years of human history." Ethan stood beside him, his hands resting on the back of his chair, his mind racing. This was his moment to speak. He had to convince these leaders that space exploration could be the catalyst for global unity. It wasn't just about sending humans to Mars. It was about creating a shared purpose, a future that transcended borders and brought the world together in the face of existential threats. "This project is bigger than all of us," Ethan said, his voice steady but filled with passion. "It's not just about space. It's about securing the future of the planet, of humanity itself. The Earth-Mars Synergy Project will provide the technological advances we need to address climate change, to solve resource scarcity, and to ensure that humanity's best days are still ahead of us. We must unite not just for our nations, but for the future of all people." There was a murmur of agreement in the room. Some nodded, others sat quietly, their expressions thoughtful. Ethan had done his part, and now it was up to the others to decide whether they were ready to take the leap. Over the next few weeks, negotiations intensified. The major powers of the world began to forge tentative alliances, offering to collaborate on key aspects of the project. While the process was slow, the foundations of a united front were being built. The project had gone from being an ambitious dream to a serious, worldwide endeavor. And yet, not everyone was on board. The skeptics remained. A vocal minority in the scientific community and the media continued to question the practicality of the project. They argued that resources would be better spent on Earth's immediate problems rather than pursuing an untested and uncertain goal on Mars. Some even accused Ethan and Musk of prioritizing their personal ambitions over the well-being of the planet. In response, Ethan took to the media again, but this time with a new approach. He decided to frame the project not just as a challenge for scientists, but as a call to action for humanity as a whole. His words were powerful. They struck a chord with people across the globe. The hashtag #BuildTheFuture hashtag was gaining traction again, this time not just as a rallying cry for space exploration, but as a symbol of collective action. The project was no longer just about sending a few people to Mars. It was about reshaping the way humanity thought about its future. As the global collaboration grew, new challenges emerged. The logistics of building the necessary infrastructure, launch pads, spacecraft, habitats, and life support systems, were daunting. Every nation had its own priorities, its own interests, and its own concerns about how resources would be allocated. But with Ethan and Musk's leadership, the tensions were managed with remarkable diplomacy. One of the most critical aspects of the project was securing the technology for sustainable life on Mars. In order to make the Earth-Mars Synergy project a reality, they needed to develop life support systems capable of supporting human life on Mars for extended periods. This meant developing new methods for food production, water purification, and air filtration, technologies that could also have immediate benefits for Earth's most impoverished and vulnerable communities. Ethan and Musk worked tirelessly with teams of engineers, scientists, and humanitarian groups to ensure that these technologies were developed. It was a long road, but the breakthroughs they achieved were nothing short of revolutionary. As the months passed, the project began to take on a life of its own. New research and development hubs were established across the globe, and collaboration between nations intensified. The Earth-Mars Synergy project was no longer just an idea. It was a global movement, and every passing day brought humanity closer to the realization of a future where Earth and Mars could coexist and thrive together. On the eve of the next major summit in Geneva, where the final agreements for the project would be made, Ethan and Musk sat in their private office, discussing the road ahead. "You've really done it, Ethan," Musk said, looking over a series of reports on their desk. "This thing is bigger than anything we could have imagined. You've turned the tide." Ethan leaned back in his chair, gazing out the window at the city skyline. "It's not over yet," he said softly. "We still have to deliver. We still have to show the world that we can make this happen. But now, I feel like we're finally on the verge of something incredible." Musk smiled, his eyes twinkling with determination. "Well, that's what we do, right? We make the impossible possible. And for the first time, Ethan truly believed it. The Earth-Mars Synergy Project was no longer just a dream. It was a movement, and they were going to make it a reality. Together, the summit in Geneva had been a defining moment for the Earth-Mars Synergy Project. After weeks of intense negotiations and planning, world leaders had signed the final agreements. Nations, corporations, and scientific organizations had officially pledged their full support for the mission. The project was now a global endeavor, not just a vision, but a concrete, tangible effort to secure the future of humanity on both Earth and Mars. Ethan stood on the steps of the Geneva Conference Center, watching the reporters and photographers bustle around, capturing the historic moment. For the first time, he felt the weight of what had been accomplished. The signatures were on the paper, but the real work was just beginning. Now, it was time for action. The first wave of resources began pouring in almost immediately. Teams of engineers, scientists, and logistical experts were dispatched to build the infrastructure necessary for the Earth-Mars Synergy Project. The mission was clear. They had to establish a permanent human presence on Mars, capable of sustaining life for years to come. As the weeks passed, the scale of the project became more apparent. Dozens of companies began developing new technologies for Mars habitats, transportation, and life support systems. A new space station, part of the Earth-Mars Synergy Initiative, was constructed in low Earth orbit, designed to serve as the launching point for missions to Mars. At the same time, research facilities around the world began developing the materials and technologies that would be needed to build sustainable communities on the Red Planet. Ethan watched with awe as things began to take shape. The buzz of activity was relentless, and each breakthrough seemed to open up new possibilities. But with every technological advancement came new challenges. The scale of the mission, the sheer ambition of the project, was daunting. The first Mars mission would involve a team of scientists, engineers, and astronauts who would travel to the Red Planet to establish the first human base. Musk had made it clear that SpaceX was committed to making that mission a reality, and soon. But they still had a long way to go before the first crew could depart. Ethan had spent countless hours with the team, reviewing every detail of the mission. The timeline was tight, and there was no room for error. They had to ensure that everything, from the spacecraft to the life support systems to the food supply, was perfectly aligned before launch. But as the first crew of astronauts underwent rigorous training and simulations, something unexpected happened. It was a quiet afternoon when the news broke. A small team of scientists had made a groundbreaking discovery, something that would change the course of the mission entirely. A team of researchers had found a series of underground water reserves on Mars. These water reserves, located beneath the surface of the planet, could provide a sustainable source of water for human colonies. The discovery was enormous. If they could tap into these water sources, it would dramatically reduce the need to transport water from Earth, making the Mars colonies far more self-sufficient. The news spread like wildfire. The implications were immediate. The discovery of water on Mars meant that the timeline for establishing a permanent human presence on the planet could be shortened. The project had just taken a giant leap forward. Ethan was the first to receive the news from the team lead. He stood in his office, staring at the message, his mind racing. This was the kind of breakthrough they had been waiting for. "We've done it," he whispered to himself. But with every triumph, there was a corresponding challenge. While the discovery of water was monumental, it also brought with it new questions. How would they access the water? What kind of technology would they need to extract it safely? What other dangers lurked beneath the Martian surface? Ethan knew the answers wouldn't come easily. But the team had faced challenges before, and they would rise to meet this one. The next few months would be spent developing the technology to extract and purify the Martian water, but Ethan was confident that this discovery would make all the difference in the long run. As the months wore on, the first Mars mission continued to gain momentum. The crew had been selected, trained, and tested. The spacecraft was undergoing final inspections, and the Earth-Mars Synergy Project was on the brink of a new era. But Ethan still felt a pang of unease. As much as they had accomplished, there was always the possibility of failure. The risks were still enormous. Still, he couldn't shake the feeling that this was their moment. The entire world had rallied behind the project, and it seemed as if humanity had finally found its common purpose. Whether or not the mission succeeded, it was already a victory. In a final, quiet moment before launch, Ethan sat in the command center, looking out at the stars. Elon Musk approached him, a rare moment of seriousness in his normally jovial demeanor. "This is it, Ethan," Musk said, his voice quiet but filled with determination. "We've built this together. No matter what happens, we've changed the world. We've done something that will be remembered for generations." Ethan nodded, his mind filled with memories of the long road that had led them here. They had fought through skepticism, financial hurdles, and political opposition. They had risked everything to create something that no one had thought possible. And now, it was all coming together. "I know," Ethan said softly, "but this is only the beginning. We've created something bigger than ourselves. We've created a future." As the countdown to the first Mars mission began, Ethan's heart raced. The journey to Mars was about to begin, and no matter the outcome, humanity was about to take its first step toward a future among the stars. The mission launched in a flurry of fire and smoke. The spacecraft, powered by the best technology humanity could offer, roared into the sky. The world watched in awe as the rocket ascended, carrying the first crew of humans toward Mars. Ethan stood with Musk, watching the launch on a massive screen in the command center. The entire world was holding its breath. This was their moment. This was their future. As the spacecraft disappeared into the sky, Ethan felt a surge of pride. The Earth-Mars Synergy project had done more than unite nations. It had united the world in a shared vision of what was possible. The journey to Mars had begun, and humanity was on its way to becoming a multi-planetary species. But even as the rocket ascended, Ethan knew that the true test had just begun. Mars awaited, and the future of humanity was in their hands. The Earth-Mars Synergy project had reached a pivotal moment. The launch of the first mission to Mars had captured the world's imagination, and the entire planet was watching as history was being made. The journey to Mars was underway, and the possibilities seemed endless. Yet, for Ethan, the true challenge was only just beginning. It wasn't enough to send a spacecraft to Mars. It was about ensuring humanity could thrive there. He had spent years dreaming of this moment, but now, the reality of the challenge before him was more daunting than ever. The first few days after the mission launch were filled with celebrations, media coverage, and congratulatory messages from around the globe. Ethan was bombarded with interviews, questions, and requests from all directions. It was as if the world was holding its collective breath, waiting for any sign that the mission was a success. But even as he attended conferences, met with global leaders, and helped coordinate the next steps, his mind was fixed on Mars. The crew aboard the spacecraft was still days away from entering Mars orbit. The technology they had developed, the strategies for survival, the lessons they'd learned from countless simulations, they were all about to be put to the test in a way no one had ever experienced before. Ethan couldn't help but feel the weight of the responsibility. He had fought so hard to get to this point, but now, the true cost of success and failure was staring him in the face. The next few years would be the hardest of his life, and he knew that the stakes had never been higher. The first real test came sooner than expected. 3 days into the spacecraft's journey, a communication anomaly occurred. The signal from the crew, usually steady and reliable, began to crackle and fade. It wasn't just a glitch, it was something far more serious. The entire world was glued to their screens as engineers and scientists scrambled to analyze the situation. Ethan stood in the control room, watching as the data poured in. His heart raced as he saw the warning signs. The anomaly wasn't a minor issue. It was a major systems malfunction that could jeopardize the entire mission. The communication blackout meant they could no longer directly contact the crew. For all they knew, something had gone horribly wrong. For a few agonizing hours, Ethan and Musk worked side by side, poring over data and troubleshooting the issue. They had contingency plans in place, but they had never expected something like this to happen so early in the mission. The stakes had just become even higher. Ethan's mind raced, calculating the risks. But even in the face of this crisis, he kept a level head. They had faced challenges before. This one was no different. With each passing minute, they worked together to find a solution. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, Musk slammed his hand on the desk. "We've got it," he said. It's the backup navigation system. It's stuck in a loop, but we can fix it remotely. Within hours, the team had restored the communications link. The crew on board was safe. The mission was still on track. But the near miss had reminded Ethan that space exploration was filled with dangers, and no amount of preparation could account for every variable. As the spacecraft continued its journey, Ethan was faced with the enormity of the task ahead. The mission was far from over, and the true test would come when they reached Mars. The first landing would set the tone for everything to follow. Failure wasn't an option. But as the mission progressed and the crew neared their destination, the world's anticipation reached a fever pitch. Back on Earth, the preparations for the Mars settlement were in full swing. The Earth-Mars Synergy project had become a rallying point for people of all walks of life. It wasn't just about space. It was about survival, about hope for the future. From scientists to school children, everyone had a stake in what was happening. The world's eyes were fixed on Mars, waiting to see whether humanity could truly become a multi-planetary species. Ethan had spent countless hours working with teams to ensure that the technologies needed to support a Martian colony were in place. They had developed self-sustaining life support systems, advanced agricultural technologies to grow food on Mars, and sophisticated habitat designs. But the truth was, even with the best technology in the world, no one could be sure what the experience of living on Mars would really be like. As the spacecraft entered Mars orbit, the tension reached its peak. The crew had already completed their final approach checklist and were preparing for the descent to the surface. The entire world was watching as they prepared for the first human touch on Mars. Ethan sat in a room filled with the best scientists, engineers, and astronauts in the world, all watching the screens in silence. This was it. For hours, the team monitored the descent, waiting for the first signs that the crew was landing safely. The ground crew, which was responsible for managing the landing, spoke in measured tones, guiding the spacecraft step by step. And then, finally, after what felt like an eternity, the signal came through. "Touchdown," the lead engineer said quietly. The room erupted into cheers. Ethan felt the surge of emotions flood through him, but he remained focused. This was just the beginning. The crew had landed, but the true challenge lay in ensuring that the colony could survive, thrive, and eventually expand. The first step had been taken, but the road ahead was still filled with uncertainties. The first Martian colony would require constant attention, adjustments, and innovation. Ethan knew that it would take decades before Mars was truly a second home for humanity. But this was a start that no one had ever thought possible. In the months that followed the landing, the first Martian colony began to take shape. The crew members who had landed on Mars sent back regular updates, their messages filled with excitement, caution, and determination. They were pioneers, the first humans to live on another planet. And with each passing day, they grew more confident that the mission was not only possible, but sustainable. Ethan kept his focus on the long-term goals. Mars would not be built in a day. But with each new technology tested, each new breakthrough achieved, humanity was one step closer to making Mars their second home. The Earth-Mars Synergy project had become more than just a space mission. It was a symbol of what humanity could accomplish when they worked together. It had proven that the impossible could be achieved, and that the future of humanity was not confined to Earth. The stars were no longer just a distant dream. They were the next frontier, and humanity had already begun the journey to claim them. Ethan stood on the balcony of the headquarters, looking up at the night sky. He saw Mars shining brightly in the distance. It wasn't just a planet anymore. It was the future. And he knew that this was only the beginning. The new horizon had arrived, and humanity was ready to meet it. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough?